it will likely mean higher expenses. But I just spoke with a Canadian oil patch executive here in Dubai who said her company is on board with being more aggressive in cutting these emissions from its oil and gas operations. And a few dozen clean tech companies in Calgary have developed various systems in recent years designed to do just that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The CBC's Kyle Bax in Dubai. Also at the COP28 summit, the Prime Minister of Barbados is calling for global governance when it comes to addressing the climate crisis.
To facilitate the preservation of both people and planet, it is a false dichotomy to believe that we can save one without the other. The planet needs global governance, not in a big stick way, but in a simple way of us cooperating with each other to be able to work with the institutions that we have.
Mia Motley says there are a number of middle-income countries that need help if they're going to adapt to the new climate reality. She says more nations need to focus strategically when it comes to climate vulnerability. People living along India's southern coast are preparing for Cyclone Migjam. An ambulance slowly drives through flooded streets in Chennai, India. Torrential rain has already hit the city. The cyclone is forecast to make landfall tomorrow. The coastline along the state of Tamil Nadu and neighboring Andhra Pradesh are expected to get the brunt of the storm today. Schools and offices are closed in Chennai. Flights in and out of the airport have been cancelled or diverted, and thousands of residents have been forced to leave. India's weather office says it is expecting winds up to 100 kilometers an hour when the cyclone lands. In Indonesia, rescue teams are still looking for 12 missing climbers. They were near Mount Merapi when it erupted yesterday. 11 other climbers were killed. Officials say their bodies have been recovered. The volcano in West Sumatra spewed thick ash and blanketed nearby towns with debris. 3 climbers who were rescued earlier this morning were found with burns. Venezuelans have said yes to their government claiming part of Guyana. The dispute is over oil. Some of the world's largest reserves have been found off the region's shores. The country held a referendum on the issue. Freelance reporter Manuel Rueda is tracking developments.
Venezuelan officials celebrated the referendum results, with claims that the vast majority of voters said yes to questions about the Essequibo region. Voters were asked whether they rejected a century-old ruling that granted most of the Essequibo region to Guyana, and also if they rejected Guyana's recent use of the Essequibo's territorial waters. Large oil deposits were discovered off the region's shores in 2016. And Guyana has been developing them with the help of American oil companies. Now, Guyana's oil boom could be affected by Venezuela's claims. Guyanese President Irfan Ali urged Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro to settle the dispute at the International Court of Justice.
We call upon them once more to join us in demonstrating maturity and responsibility and in allowing the rule of law to work and to determine the outcome of this controversy.
The referendum over the Essequibo territory comes as President Maduro's popularity plummets amid a prolonged economic crisis. Critics of Maduro say the president is looking for a cause that will boost his popularity in the run-up to next year's presidential election. Manuel Rueda, CBC News, Bogotá.
Fans are remembering April Wine frontman Miles Goodwin. The Canadian rock band came together in Halifax in the 1960s. April Wine became one of Canada's most iconic bands. Goodwin died Sunday at the age of 75. Sarah Levitt has more on his legacy.
Standing on stage, guitar in hand, Miles Goodwin said he never felt more alive than when he was performing with April Wine. In 1969, Goodwin helped form April Wine. The band would go on to sell more than 10 million albums worldwide and received 11 Juno nominations. Goodwin was also inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame, a career highlight, he said.
I'm not the greatest singer, the greatest guitar player. I'm not the greatest songwriter either, but I took great pride in being able to write songs that were popular, and I have done that all of my life.
Earlier this year, Goodwin stepped down as the lead singer, saying it was time. Goodwin died in Halifax. He was 75. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
That is World Report. I'm Marcy Young.
Good morning, everyone. Wow, is it foggy out there in Winnipeg and surrounding areas? We've got an advisory, in fact, for the city and for Steinbach, Selkirk, Dugald, Portage, and Morden. So take it easy and good morning. Welcome to the morning show. This is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on the app. I'm Marcy. Markusa, as mentioned. Thanks for joining us. We'll get into your forecast in more detail in a moment. Well, what number do you dial? Are you losing track of all the area codes out there? Well, get ready, because across Canada, area codes are running out. We'll start there. We'll have a look at some of Manitoba's as well. There are 3. In addition, this hour on the show, we're going to talk to Keith Brooks from Environmental Defense about what's been happening at COP28. You just heard on national and international news some of the highlights. But we'll find out more about what he has to say about what he's seeing happening there. In addition, the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs is in Ottawa this week. They're talking to the government about what they say are problematic trends. We'll hear more. Right now to local news with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, dozens gathered in West Broadway yesterday honoring those who were shot in that mass shooting a week ago. Bear Clan organizing the vigil at the Rooming House. Roberta Owen's nieces, Stephanie and Crystal Beardy, were among the 4 people who were killed. She says family still has unanswered questions and are praying for the 5th victim, a 55-year-old man still in hospital, that he survives to tell his story. We have fog, we have frost, but no snow in Winnipeg's forecast, and some business owners are starting to feel the impact. So we're going to hear that story as well in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Did you have a good weekend?
It was wonderful.
Good,
thank you. How was yours?
Good. Oh, really nice. Yeah, really nice. I have to say, though, I had a wreath. I have a live wreath, and I always put it on the door. And in the backyard, there's a door kind of that we see that goes into the garage. At any rate, I put it up, and I'm like, why does it look sort of dull this year? And then I looked around, and I realized it's because there's no snow.
Oh.
So I'm like, we need snow now. Just a dusting.
Just a little bit of white to make everything else bounce.
Yeah, exactly. So Pat's here with the forecast to tell us that we might get some later in the week.
No.
Nothing?
Rain or showers
Not
on
even
Friday.
A little bit? Oh.
Okay, or flurries,
All
maybe.
right. Well, the mild trend continues. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you? It's nice to see you, by
I'm
the
good.
way.
Yeah, I'm well.
Let's see here. Well, I'm looking at some interesting temperatures. So I'm looking at Brandon right now, just because I am. Thursday, 10 degrees. Okay, 10. But then 4 days later, on Sunday, minus 10. So we have another mild week ahead, but then we could take a turn to more seasonal temperatures. So let's start off with the fog advisory, though. Holy smokes, I had fog driving in this morning, Marcy, on Highway 9 into the city, and some mist as well on the windshield. So that is what's happening out there. Environment Canada put this out at 3:52 a.m., and this is for much of southern Manitoba, city of Winnipeg, Steinbach, St. Adolphe. Well, there's so many places here, but it extends out to Portage la Prairie, Headingley, and down into the Pembina Valley for the most part. Less, though, into the western part of the province. Portage la Prairie, I see, is about as far west. But yes, near zero visibility in some areas. So do know that if you have to take to the highway this morning. And take it easy out there, and I hope your fog lights are working. Temperature-wise, we are at -8 in the downtown, -9 at the airport with some mist. And the forecast today, well, sunshine. We have a little bit of cloud cover over the southeast corner of the province and a lot over the southwestern portion of the province right now. But we expect to see sunshine here in Winnipeg today with a mix of sun and cloud a little bit later into the morning, a high of -3. So pretty much will warm up about 5 degrees or so. Tonight we'll dip down to a -9, mainly cloudy. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and cloud and a -2. But then, yes, Wednesday, Thursday, a 7 and a 6 for daytime highs here in the Peg. Yeah, and then on Friday, rain showers or flurries with a -2. But then for next weekend, we're colder, -7 and -10. So that's more seasonal for this time of year. The average overnight low is -17, which you can see we're nowhere near that, and -8 for a daytime high.
How's that rink coming?
Yeah, it's not. It's going to be just complete slush. So I've given up on it until maybe next weekend with some -10 temperatures. But yeah, thank you for reminding me, because every day I look at it, I just shake my head and just say, yeah, it's not happening. I should also mention here, Brandon, you're -11 right now, mostly cloudy on the way to a -3. And Thompson, -7. Pretty much going to stay there, mostly cloudy skies today, and a -6. Traffic, I'll mention that number as I always do at 6:14 in the morning, 788-3093. Any stalls, crashes, train delays, lights out, anything like that, I'm standing by for your calls.
Well, did you even know that one of the area codes in Manitoba is 584? You may have forgotten that. It was introduced last year. But up first on this show, let's have a look at area codes across the country. 584 is the newest one in Manitoba. The oldest one, of course, is 204, and then we have 431. But hang on to those three area codes tightly, because Canada is, as I mentioned, running out. According to the Canadian authority that uses new phone numbers, there are only 5 more new area codes that are available for this country, and those could all be in use by the end of the decade. CBC's Blair Sanderson has a look this Monday morning at how we got here and how our attachment to phone numbers is changing.
All right, Miss Bennis. All finished. Here's your new number.
646. What is this?
That's your new.
The addition of a new area code can be so notable and yet so trivial, it was perfect fodder for an episode of Seinfeld.
646.
It's a new area code.
What area? New Jersey?
No, it's right here in the city.
I'm really kind of seeing somebody.
Yeah? Well, so am I.
Back when that episode was released, the addition of new area codes was still a fairly rare thing. But these days across North America, it's happening more frequently.
A new area code will be added.
929 is joining the city's list of area codes.
Phone customers will be getting a new area code
because they're running out of numbers with a 920 area code.
557,
718 and 347.
728 area code.
The latest Canadian area code, it's 382 for parts of southwestern Ontario. And as it turns out, it's one of the last that's available.
Canada itself is definitely running out of numbers, for sure.
Kelly Walsh is with the Canadian Numbering Administrator. It's an organization set up by the CRTC that's responsible for handling new area codes across the country.
And so we don't pull these out of thin air, of course, so we couldn't make up a number because it might be the same as a number somewhere else, and we can't have that. So Canada, in fact, participates in something called the North American Numbering Plan, and we're one of 20 countries that participate. There's Canada, there's the United States, and there's about 18 other sort of Caribbean nations. And in that pool, we only have about 800 numbers to use for all our geographic and non-geographic purposes. So there's a limited number, and there's about 5 numbers left.
And just to be clear, that's 5 area codes left that are earmarked for Canada. And Walsh says those will all likely be in use by the year 2030. And it's not just new phones that are driving this demand for new numbers.
OnStar emergency, this is Brian. Help is on the way. Are you injured?
No, I'm okay.
For example, a growing number of vehicles are now equipped with their own cellular capabilities, GM's OnStar program being a prime example. Parking enforcement agents also often use mobile devices to check the status of parked cars. And mobile payment systems that accept your credit or debit card sometimes use a cellular connection to process the transactions. Stephen Neville is a professor of computer and electrical engineering at the University of Victoria. He says the Internet of Things, such as connected appliances in your home, can get by just with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, but cellular connections are needed in other applications, and even if it's just a fraction, the total pool is growing fast.
So currently there's about ballpark around 5 billion devices on the internet. Lots of those are now wireless. The expectation over the next decade or so is that will grow to 100 billion. So for things that need communication, wireless communication at kilometer ranges and are moving, cellular becomes the network of choice to do that.
The Canadian Numbering Administrator says once the last area code is used, an 11th digit could be in our future, which is already the case in some parts of Europe. For fun, I called a random restaurant in the UK to see how that's working.
It's a pub in London.
What is it? You're a pub in London.
Yeah.
How's it going there today?
Quiet. It's very sunny. A beautiful day in London.
Antonio Rodriguez says they've been using 11 digits for years, and it's not a big issue because people don't actually dial numbers that often anyway. Family and friends numbers are simply saved as contacts on your phone.
And even if you Google it somewhere, you Google on your phone that website and it gives you press call and then you can call them straight away. So dialing, I don't think anyone dials anymore.
And so, while it might seem like running out of area codes could be a big deal, in the end it might be something that's not worth getting too hung up on. For CBC Radio, I'm Blair Sanderson.
Oh, we understand in Manitoba how we get attached to things, right? The 204, I think, would obviously be the one we all own. 431, though, it's getting there. The newest area code, as I mentioned, in Manitoba, 584. And one way to conserve Canada's phone numbers, by the way, is to recycle them. So for instances, more and more people ditch their landlines. Those old numbers can be reused, typically within about 6 months.
It's not just how a story is told. It's about whose story it is to tell. It's not just playing what's new. It's setting the stage for what's next. It's not just about the game. It's bringing your game. It's not just trusted news. It's being where it matters because it matters. It's not how Canadian you are. It's who you are in Canada. It's not just one thing. CBC. It's a Canada thing.
It is 6:22 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. or on the app. I'm Marcy Markusa. Good morning to everybody watching on the main network. Good morning to everyone listening, of course, on 89.3 or on the app. And good morning to all of our YouTube watchers as well this morning. It's -8, misty and foggy out there. Fog advisory for much of southern Manitoba, the southeast mostly. And so take it easy. In Brandon, mostly cloudy, -10. Dauphin's -10 and cloudy as well. It's snowing up in Thompson, just some light snow, and -7. Well, next on the show, the COP28 UN Climate Change Conference is off to a notable start, a historic start, in fact. Countries have committed to a new global fund to address damage connected to climate change. On Friday, Canada's Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault announced that this country has joined the list of contributors to that fund, making an initial pledge of $16 million. We're joined by Keith Brooks this morning for his reaction to all this, Managing Director at Environmental Defence, which is an advocacy organization. Hi there.
Hi, good morning.
So history being made right off the bat. What'd you think of it?
Well, it's certainly a positive development. Last year at the COP, countries agreed on the need to create a loss and damage fund. And then this year, right out of the gate, people are putting money behind that fund. That was one of the things that we were going to use to measure success at this year's COP, and to have one of those things ticked off the list right at the beginning is a good sign.
So for people that didn't follow all the details of this, can you fill in the listeners on the significance of this fund?
Well, I mean, there's a great inequity around climate change, and that there are a bunch of wealthy countries that really are mostly responsible for climate change because we've been industrialized for a long time, have high energy lifestyles, are oil and gas producing countries, and those countries have contributed a lot to the issue of climate change, whereas the poorer and less developed countries have contributed less, and yet those are the countries that will be most impacted by climate disaster because of drought or rising sea levels or because of extreme floods. And so this fund is really meant to help people who are in harm's way, who have been directly impacted by something like a flood or a drought or something like that related to climate change.
Which countries could benefit most immediately from this?
The countries around around the world, actually. I mean, there's Pakistan, South Sudan, Somalia. I mean, a lot of countries where you would have heard recent stories of there being tremendous floods, or of there being massive droughts, of there being massive migration. There's a lot of countries where, the impacts of climate change are quite severe already, more so even than just some of the forest fires that we had here in Canada.
In your view, does this the deal on this damage fund suggest a greater possibility of additional agreements as this unfolds, as COP unfolds this week?
Well, we were certainly hopeful, and one of the other things that is up for negotiation in this year's COP is fossil fuels and the role of fossil fuels, or the need to phase out fossil fuels, meaning oil, coal, and gas. Last year, 80 countries agreed that this should be something that the world kind of agrees that we need to do to phase out fossil fuels. It's one of the things we were hoping to get into the text this year. And there was some positive signs, though, over the weekend. The host of COP now has said that he doubts or doesn't think there's any science that supports the need to phase out fossil fuels. Now, he's a bit of a controversial character. The president of the COP negotiations is also the head of the United Arab Oil Company, so maybe in a bit of a conflict of interest there. But we really hope to see some progress on agreement about the need to phase out fossil fuels.
What do you think of him being the chair? I think that, as you said, a bit of a controversy there, but is it also a positive to have people at the table at these conferences that are going to be the ones that would have to change industry if we're going to move where we're going?
Yeah, I mean, some people think that oil and gas companies are part of the solution. And the solutions here in Canada that are being offered, like carbon capture. But there's also certainly a lot of doubt about that. We don't see oil companies really backing their pledge to reduce emissions. They're not investing in clean energy. The former head of the UN said, Christiana Figueres, said she worked for a long time with fossil fuel companies, thinking they were part of the solution, and has now come to the realization that they are not part of the solution. And Antonio Guterres, the current Secretary General, said it's not fossil fuel emissions that's the problem; it is fossil fuels themselves. So I think we really want to see oil interests less represented at the COP. I don't think that they're really a constructive part of the solution. And, again, this host this year, I mean, it was leaked that he was actually working on negotiating new deals to sell oil and gas and using the COP to help do that.
Thank you very much for your insight and for your analysis this morning, Keith Brooks. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Keith Brooks is Managing Director at Environmental Defense, which is an advocacy organization. More on COP coming up on World Report. Right now it's 6:27 a.m. and we just have time to slide in a little bit of music. In case you missed it Friday, we were making the season kind, and the students from Meadows West School joined us and they sang live in our studio. This tune's called One Day.
Negativity surrounds. I know someday it will all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, one day, one day. Tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it will all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that
just lovely. Got up early, performed live for us here Friday. That's part of the choir from Meadows West School under the direction of Paul Long. And thank you guys for coming down. In addition, big thanks to our performers who were here all through the day. On the morning show, we had Aaron Propp and Larry Roy, gorgeous. Donna Merrow, really beautiful singing as well and sharing some meaningful stories. This was all on Friday, of course, our full day of programming, and into Saturday morning also for Make the Season Kind in support of Harvest Manitoba. So thank you to all the musicians that took part and, of course, all the journalists that shared stories from Harvest as we leaned into the need in our communities. This morning, why we're revisiting some of that music is because we have a total to share. So right now, and this I believe is the final with matching $304,000 and $815. So just over $304,000 was raised for Harvest Manitoba. And in a year where there's historic need and where it's difficult to give because all of our budgets are tight, everyone's budget's tight out there. I just really heartwarming to see how people were able to take part and to help out this year. It'll go a long way, Manitoba. So thank you very much for listening and for supporting Make the Season Kind. Our business news coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, we've got fog out there. We also have some hoarfrost, so it looks pretty if you can see through the fog. We're going to see a mix of sun and clouds in Winnipeg this morning, continuing mild, a high of -3. Remembering victims of a mass shooting. Dozens gathered at a vigil outside the Langside rooming house where 5 people were shot last weekend. Gardena Prince was there, drumming and singing to honor the community. She says she knew all 4 of the people who were killed, and one of the victims, 29-year-old Melilik Lesikal, was her partner of nearly 2 years and her best friend.
He had a lot of friends. He was loved, very kind. He had goals and he had dreams, and unfortunately he didn't get a chance to achieve them.
Lesikal's funeral is today. Last week, police charged 32-year-old Jamie Randy Felix with 4 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. We are expecting news from the Canadian government today at the COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai. An announcement in the works detailing a new series of restrictions aimed at getting the country moving forward on its methane emissions target. It's an ambitious plan with the goal being to cut Canada's emissions by 75% by 2030. Also at the COP28 summit, the Prime Minister of Barbados is calling for global governance to address the climate crisis.
To facilitate the preservation of both people and planet, it is a false dichotomy to believe that we can save one without the other. The planet needs global governance, not in a big stick way, but in a simple way of us cooperating with each other to be able to work with the institutions that we have.
Mia Motley saying a strategic focus is needed to help countries who are considered climate vulnerable. Global Affairs Canada confirms the death of another Canadian citizen in the Israel-Hamas war. No name has been released, but Canadian officials say the death occurred in Lebanon, where the Israeli military and Hezbollah militants have been exchanging fire since the October 7th attacks on Israel. The latest confirmed fatality brings to 8 the number of Canadians killed in the war. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. People from 4 communities are working together to help families during tragedy. They're part of a northern Manitoba scuba diving team. CBC's Aaron Broman has their story.
Volunteers from 4 Island Lake communities are in boats scouring the water. Kurt Mason got an urgent call over his 2-way radio.
Bring your diving equipment right away. And once you're here, they kept saying.
The man he's been looking for went out in his boat the week before and didn't return. Using an underwater camera, the chief of Garden Hill First Nation found his body near an island. Mason and 2 other divers boated over to him and geared up.
It was so cold. It was so cold.
Eventually, they found the body and brought it to the surface.
That's something that we have to do.
The team has 15 certified scuba divers from around the region, which has about 15,000 people between 4 communities. They're isolated and connected by water most of the year and can't always rely on RCMP to immediately search. Mason says when needed, he'd dive again.
I just want to bring closure to family, and because it's hard.
He says the man's father personally thanked them once they got back to shore. Aaron Broman, CBC News, Garden Hill First Nation.
Manitoba Kuwaitnawi Okamakanak is in its first winter managing Thompson's homeless shelter. The Northern Chiefs Group took over operations of the shelter in July, renaming it the Wellbriety Centre. Thompson Mayor Colleen Smook says a sobering centre addition to the shelter remains critical.
It's come to the crunch of how we're going to do it. So I think with MKO at the helm, and we've got the province give us the 3 big buildings up there to work with the campus that we call it, and the programming that we're planning, I think you're going to see a real difference in a year.
Thompson's Wellbriety Centre will also have a medical van patrolling streets for anyone needing help. Winter sport lovers across the province are hoping for more snow. Yvonne Rideout is the executive director at Snowmobilers of Manitoba, also known as Snowman.
Our clubs can't make snow, unfortunately, so we ask that you bear with us and let's join me in doing the snow dance.
Rideout reminds riders to make sure they have a snow pass to avoid fines when the season does get going. And getting an inside look at the halls of government. The Manitoba legislature held its open house on Saturday. Dan Huang stepped inside for the very first time. She's lived in Canada for more than 2 years and says the legislature has always been a mystery to her.
I think it's a great event for the public to know how the government to work. Yeah, I think it's great.
Huang says the building was big and beautiful, and she adds her family learned a lot about how government works. You can find more news on our website. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
It's a stunning building, too, right?
It's the most beautiful. I love going there.
It really is. During the election, I was reminded of that because we were able to do our show from inside the rotunda. And, I mean, my goodness, it really is a gift of architecture if people haven't been there. So,
if you can, go check it out. When I used to report many moons ago, and I would go to the Ledge to cover stories, I always felt just so privileged to be there.
Yeah. Can you believe this? After all these years, I have never taken the tour.
Oh, really?
The proper tour. I know. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, you should do it.
Have you done it?
Let's go together. I'll go with you.
Will you go? I would love to go. Yeah. Absolutely.
We'll go in January. I'm going to have some time in my hands. I'll take you guys.
Thanks, Pat. All right, Pat's taking us.
I have taken some people there who are from out of town.
Yeah.
And when Heather mentioned when she used to report there, I too used to report from there many moons ago. My parents met in that building.
Did they?
Yeah, so it was always kind of a special place for me.
What were they protesting?
No. My mom worked in water resources and my dad worked in a drafting office. So
nice.
There you go. Yeah, way back in the day.
I didn't know that about your parents.
Let's give a shout out to Abby this morning. You mentioned it earlier when we signed on the air. You said Abby's duck shirt. So is that like duck like quack, quack, quack? No. It's rubber ducky, you're the one.
You make bath time so much fun.
It's a beautiful
rubber
shirt.
Ducky, oh, sorry.
It was nice. I just couldn't get to that next octave.
I got carried away there.
So Abby's wearing the rubber ducky shirt, and it's gorgeous. It's kind of putting a smile on our face on this Monday morning. So
yeah.
Good morning to you, Abby.
Now you'll have to make sure that you can see if you're out there this morning. Switching gears here because it is really seriously foggy.
Yeah, we go from the rubber ducky to the fog, and it is foggy out there. I had just a few car lengths driving in on Highway 9, just north of the city, and we have this fog advisory. This from Environment Canada was put out just before 4 o'clock this morning. It's for City of Winnipeg as well as Pembina Valley into the Red River Valley, Emerson, Vida area, Selkirk, Gimli, Stonewall, a bit of the Interlake, and then west to Portage la Prairie. And even northern Interlake as well up into Arberg and Hecla, Fisher River, Gypsumville, and Ashburn. So those areas up Highway 6. So near zero visibility in the fog expected or occurring. And this is going to go on for the next few hours until it dissipates. So just know that if you have to hit the highways this morning, that it could be an issue, and do take note. Weather-wise, still pretty mild. We're -8 right now, but we are going to warm up today in Winnipeg to a high of -3, and we'll see that fog dissipate. Then it'll become sunny this morning, then a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon. Pretty uneventful day for the most part, wind up to 15 kilometers per hour. Tonight, we will be mainly cloudy again, and some fog patches overnight again, low of -9. Tomorrow, a -2. Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to get back to the greening of southern Manitoba with a 7 and a 6 in Winnipeg. Brandon has a 7 and a 10 Wednesday and Thursday for daytime highs. And then we get colder into the weekend. So that's what is happening for Winnipeg. I'll go over to Brandon right now, where it is minus 11, mostly cloudy skies on the way to a minus 3. Not much wind expecting, and clearing skies this afternoon. But Brandon, you're going to be pretty cloudy this morning. I'm looking at satellite imagery right now. And yes, you're very cloudy right now. There's a few clear patches in between Brandon and Winnipeg, but it looks like some cloud and some snow flurries in the southeastern corner of Saskatchewan are just kind of getting over the border of Saskatchewan, Manitoba right now in the very southwest corner of the province. But Brandon will see that minus 3 today, minus 14 tonight. Tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud and a plus 2 before those very warm temperatures on Wednesday and Thursday. And Thompson, pretty mild one right now. Minus 7 is your wake-up temperature. On the way to a minus 6, it's pretty much going to stay with mainly cloudy skies. Tonight, dipping down to a minus 16, and tomorrow, a high of minus 6. And you could see some fog patches tomorrow morning as well, Thompson. We are looking at minus 1s, minus 2s for the most part in the province, or in central and southern Manitoba this morning. Gimli's a chilly minus 15 right now on the way to a minus 5. Morden, Winkler, minus 11. You'll see a minus 2. Whiteshell's going to see a minus 2. That's where you are right now. And Melita in that southwest corner, minus 6 on the way to a minus 1. And Dauphin, Parkland, minus 10 on the way to a minus 6. Once again, we're minus 8 here. And at the airport, minus 9 with some mist being reported. So you might have a bit of mist on your windshield this morning as well.
Wave the camera.
Which
Good
ones?
morning.
We've got a few. Yeah, good
well,
morning.
The overhead ones for YouTube right now, because Tim and Pat Stevenson are writing to us on YouTube saying, good foggy morning.
Good foggy morning.
Yeah.
I've never said that in my life before.
It's the morning to say it.
Speaking of the fog, if it's safe to do so, or you've gotten to where you're going and it's been foggy, do let me know what you saw on the highways this morning. 788-3093 is the traffic and commuter line. And in town, if there's any problems, do give me a call at that number as well.
All right, thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
It is 20 to 7 now, and Crystal Lee Ramlakan is here with our business report. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcy.
So last week we got updates on how Canada's big 6 banks are doing. What are some of the highlights?
Well, half reported higher profits for the 2023 fiscal year and half saw profits sank, but year-end bonus payments were boosted across the board. So the increase in performance-based compensation varied, of course, depending on what bank you work at and what section you work in. But together, they set aside more than $21 billion in bonus pay. So that's a 9% increase compared to last year. And last year, lenders raised bonuses by about 2%. So, there had been some expectations of cuts to bonuses amid widespread job cuts anticipated. And, mergers and acquisitions and IPO activity haven't been doing as well. They've been kind of slow. But part of the reason why banks have been able to set aside more money in the face of a challenging market is because bonuses didn't go up as much last year. So in a recent survey from recruitment firm Robert Half, more than half of finance and accounting managers said they expect bonus payments to be about the same as last year. More than a quarter expect to pay more this year. And 11% said bonuses were going to be down, and 10% said their companies would not be awarding year-end bonuses this year.
Let's go to another story. Moving to the plant-based meat industry, there was so much momentum a few years ago, right? How's that industry doing now?
Yeah, that's right. So, when Beyond Meat went public on the NASDAQ in 2019, its share price rose 163%. And there was, game-changing technology at the time and an increased focus on health and the environment among consumers. But though these days shares are trading at about a fraction of their high, and that exponential growth that was anticipated in the industry, it hasn't really panned out. So industry experts say, though, that there's still plenty of room for growth and several areas where the sector still needs investment. So just to give a little background here, U.S. sales of plant-based meat products rose by 42% between 2016 and 2019. In the second quarter of 2020, Maple Leaf Foods reported higher revenue led by a 41% gain from its plant protein business. But that industry was just growing at an unsustainable pace. So recently, U.S. retail sales of fresh meat alternatives are down by almost a quarter this year. And last month, Beyond Meat announced it was cutting 19% of its non-production workforce. So, many of the products don't quite hit the mark on taste and texture and price, especially as people are, seeing food prices at the store go up so much recently. But, Canada is the world's largest exporter of pulses like lentils and chickpeas, some of the key ingredients in plant-based products. So there is opportunity there for emerging processors to expand their operations. A recent report says the global market for plant-based meat could reach between 88 billion and 139 billion by 2035. And that would be up from the 16 billion we saw in 2021. And also, Marcy, the National Research Council says more than 40% of the population is actively trying to incorporate more plant-based foods into their diets.
Wow, those are huge numbers in terms of the projected growth, right? Wow. Before we do our numbers, markets this morning, all the emails in our inboxes, I was just actually going to click away and see how many are mine, could be hurting the environment? What's this story about?
Yeah, that's right. So all those messages consume and produce, carbon dioxide, and they consume energy. So last year, 4.2 billion email users sent and received 333 billion emails a day. And the data centers and servers that transmit and store each email consume significant amount of energy. So a typical user receives about 75 emails a day, and that produces a yearly carbon footprint of 38 kilograms. So that's the equivalent of driving 200 kilometers in a small gas-powered car. So major email service providers such as Google and Microsoft, they haven't really ever disclosed how much power they use to maintain emails. But the International Energy Agency says last year, global data centers consumed enough power to power New York City for 6 years. So quite a bit. Now, people, keep emails for a variety of reasons, including emotional ones. Sometimes you have ones from loved ones that you don't want to get rid of. And, any broad-based solution will likely need to come from these major service providers since they account for so much of the traffic. But artificial intelligence could play a role in helping users manage emails with virtual assistants that sort emails by importance. And there are some things that you can do right now. So you can use instant messaging for things that don't need saving, such as, quick work messages or telling people, hey, I'm running late. You can use a self-deleting function, such as disappearing message options. And you can archive stored emails. It compresses and reduces their size in the cloud. And I think the number one rule for all email etiquette is do not reply all.
Especially by accident.
Yes.
Okay, I checked. How many emails do you think I have? Oh, I'm going to cover my face. This is going to be embarrassing.
10,000?
12,603?
I know. You know what? I was just looking at mine. I have 16,960.
Oh, you're making me feel better now.
Yeah.
So,
I'm one of those people who hoards emails. Like, I do too. I feel like I can't get rid of them. They're like memories. They're like photos.
For me, it's more like I'm trying to keep up. And sometimes I can't keep up and I'll be like, I'll go back. I'll look at it again. But for everyone that sometimes will say to me, oh, you're ignoring me. I promise I'm not. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed with all of them though. So I would love one of those bots or whatever you said, like that could automatically sort my stuff. Apparently I need it. Yeah.
Yes. And what? Another thing that you could do is you can unsubscribe from emails that like junk emails that you keep getting, from all those stores that want you to buy stuff. Just unsubscribe. You can always sign up again.
And you probably won't ever want to, right? That's always the truth.
Yeah.
What's up in the markets?
So in Europe, markets are edging lower as energy stocks retreat and gold hits a record high. So Germany is up. The UK and France are both down. In Asia, markets are mixed. Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all down right now. Oil is down 37 cents to $73.70 US per barrel. Gold is down $1.10 right now, but it's still at $2,088.40 US per ounce. And the dollar's down almost 0.2 of a cent to 73.9 cents US.
All right. Thanks a lot, Crystal Lee. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcy. Talk later.
With our business report, that's Crystal Lee Ramlakan.
Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe help to make the season bright. But singing along to Yuletide classics and new holiday favorites is what really makes the holly jolly. CBC Music unwraps the gift of holiday playlists to get you into the festive spirit. From pop to jazz, gospel, folk, blues, classical, country, and so many more. Now available on the CBC Listen app.
Well, we haven't done this in a while, but while we're in the holiday mood here, let's do a caption this. So on my Instagram this morning, I've posted a photo. So I'm Marcy Markusa on Instagram, also on Facebook, and our show acts as a show page. My page rather acts as a show page while we're on air. So I posted this on my Marcy Markusa Facebook. So we did not stage this photo. It's important to say that. I literally am at my desk. Pat and I are talking, pouring the coffee, look over, and Abby walks into work. And he looks... Well, I'm not even going to tell you. He looks classic. That's all I'm going to say. Have a look at this photo. It is totally seasonal. It is screaming holidays. But this is how Abby looked when he came into work. It's lovely. We want you to caption it. So caption this, Manitoba. You can check it out, as I mentioned, on my Marcy Markusa Facebook page. You might even be seeing it up on YouTube as well if you're a subscriber there. Speaking of subscribers on YouTube, I know folks are saying hello, reminding us about that fog out there. So good morning, everyone. You are going to need to pay attention to the fog out there. We have an advisory for the city of Winnipeg, for Steinbach, St. Adolphe area, Selkirk, Beausejour, extending all the way to Portage la Prairie, and then also over in Morden, Winkler, and up in Hecla and Fisher River this morning as well. So kind of all those areas with a fog advisory. And it was really misty and foggy about an hour ago, still in downtown Winnipeg. The buildings are shrouded by fog. So -8 is the current temperature in the city. And it's foggy. Coming up after 7 o'clock on the show with a warm week ahead, what kind of weather will we experience the rest of December? We always like to, at the top of each new month, check in with Environment Canada, and so the senior climatologist will join us after 7. Right now, though, on the program, the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs is sounding the alarm this week about problematic trends in fire safety. Representing about 3,200 fire departments, the group is sending 40 chiefs to Parliament Hill tomorrow. They're going to meet with federal government officials. The chiefs say that an ongoing shortage of volunteer firefighters, aging equipment, and the absence of a national network of coordination are all acute issues affecting how well they can do their jobs. You might recall the federal minister of emergency was on our program a few weeks back, and we asked him about some of these things. Ken McMullen is with us this morning. He's president of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs and chief of emergency services in Red Deer, Alberta. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Mr. McMullen, when we had the minister on here a few weeks ago, we put a lot of this to him about fires and what's needed, and he said there is a lot in the works. What response have you had up to this point from the feds about the things that you're proposing?
Well, we've certainly had some conversations. Certainly, we had the opportunity to meet with the former Minister of Emergency Preparedness, and then with the change, we are doing our best to highlight these issues back with the new positions and the new people within government, because what you said at the introduction all really underscores the need for our asks. And there perhaps is an excuse that in 2023 that fire season came as a bit of a surprise. Well, we can no longer say that. I think that what the summer of 23 has shown us is to be ready for the summer of 24, and I would suggest we're not quite ready yet.
Can you speak to the two big things? One is national coordination, and the other is the need for people. So when it comes to the need for more people, what would you like to see change there?
Well, let me just give you some real quick high-level numbers here, that in 2016, there was 156,000 firefighters across this country, made up of career, composite, and volunteer firefighters. And in 2022, that number went to 126,000, which is obviously a reduction of 30,000 over 6 years. And our data that came out just yesterday indicates that number is down a little bit yet again to 125,600 men, women that are protecting our country. So the number is going down. We recognize that there's a host of reasons as to why we might be seeing challenges in our recruitment and retention. One of those might be the physical risks that it is to be a volunteer or a career firefighter. Both physical and mental health are issues that we see. So when we talk about what can we do about that, we can show our value and appreciation to the men and women by doing things like increasing the volunteer firefighter tax credit, which currently sits at $3,000 annually, and we're asking the government to consider raising that to $10,000. And you asked about the creation of a national fire administration, and what I would say to that is we're really one of the last countries at our level that don't have one. New Zealand, Australia, Japan, England, Scotland, just to name a few. But really, our closest comparator, our neighbors in the United States, have had the U.S. Fire Administration since 1977. And not only does it do fabulous work within the United States, it also does great work outside of the United States and works with countries on coordination for major disasters or events that significant outside of their own borders. And right now, we're void in that space.
So how would that improve things in Canada or change things in Canada when emergencies and fires happen?
Yeah, so even locally, we believe that the Canadian Fire Service touches between 12 and 14 different divisions of the federal government. And right now, there's nobody coordinating that. There's nobody that watches that a decision made in one division representing fire, the impact that it has on fire holistically within the whole system. And that's quite honestly what these other countries use, is the position within the federal government to watch all of the different components and does our best to coordinate that, alleviate some of the overlap and the lack of coordination can be done with the establishment of an office.
In terms of another issue here I haven't yet asked about is one of the big ones is also money to replace aging equipment. How big of an issue is that across this country?
Well, gosh, it's a huge issue and just one that's getting more concerning every day. When just like the regular cost of living for the average Canadian, we're not immune to that in the fire service. And in fact, they're showing that we're seeing about a 33% increase on some of our vehicle apparatus. From a municipal planning perspective, where we budget 5 and 10 years out to replace this equipment, we're basing that on what we believe is today's prices with a marginal increase for every year after that. So to plan for a 33% increase is just very, very challenging for municipalities. So our data shows that 54% of Canadian fire departments have deferred training and equipment needs for over 2 years simply due to the financial pressures. And so we have to be prepared for that.
Is there any way to look ahead to 2024 after the historic wildfire year we had this year and be better prepared in the short term? Obviously, you're going to go to the feds tomorrow, ask about measures, but some of these could be long-term measures, a changing of systems, if you will. What in the short term are you hopeful for in case next year is as bad as this year was for fires in Canada?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple things really simply we can do, and I would say let's show our appreciation and value to the men and women that go out and do this every single day, whether that's career, volunteer, or composite. Let's ensure that we get the support for the volunteer tax credit. Let's get the JEP funding back in place, because at the end of the day, it's the men and women of the fire service that continue to go out and answer the call, and we will continue to go out and answer the call, but we're doing it with fewer people and with greater peril to the men and women that continue to do this.
Well, we'll leave it there, Ken McMullen. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time and the interest. Have a safe day. Thank you very much.
Take care. Ken McMullen with us this morning, president of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs and chief of emergency services in Red Deer, Alberta. The Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs is an independent, non-profit organization. It represents about 3,200 fire departments. And as you heard, they're meeting with the feds tomorrow, hoping for some changes. If you're involved in a fire service here in Manitoba, and there are many, both volunteer and employed firefighters as well, but either way that you come to the role, especially also if you've worked on some of these wildfire situations, we have so many across specifically the north, right? What do you think of new measures? What do you need? What do you see when it comes to equipment or burnout or people in where you fight fires? So if you're involved in any of the services in Manitoba, you can always give us a call, 788-3205, 788-3205. I know I got into a big conversation out in Verdun when we were doing Communities in Focus with the fire chief there. Right now, let's get to what's happening in our news with headlines. Heather Wells is back at 3 minutes to 7.
Good morning. Well, roses and white candles dotted the steps of a rooming house on Langside yesterday as dozens gathered in a vigil for 5 people shot there a week ago. 4 were killed. 1 remains in hospital. Beverly Beardy's daughters, Stephanie and Crystal, both died. Beardy says she's grateful to police and homicide detectives for all their work. A First Nations scuba diving team in Island Lake is helping to bring closure to families in times of tragedy. We're going to hear about them and how they've they've grown over the years. In our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
It is misty and foggy, -8 in Winnipeg. Today we will be sunny, though, with a high of -3. There's a fog advisory, in fact, so take it easy out there for Winnipeg, Steinbach, Selkirk, Portage, Morden, up to Hecla as well. So in areas around 788-3093, if fog or anything else is causing you an issue on the drive, you can always let us know on the commuter line. In the next hour of Information Radio, a warm week ahead. By the end of the week, really quite something. What weather will we experience in December overall? We'll get into that after 7 o'clock. In addition, more on the dive team and the recovery team out of northern Manitoba and the story out of Garden Hill First Nation and Island Lake area. So that is coming up as well in some more detail. Heather was just mentioning it. And a really fun story coming up this Monday morning. Want to make pizza like a champ? Like world famous pizza? Stay tuned. You might get your chance here in Winnipeg. We'll explain in the next hour of the show. I'm Marcy Markusa. This is Information Radio. Coming up next here, World Report, the latest on CBC in international and national news. Stay with us. It's 1 minute to 7.
Today on The Current.
Planes fueled by used cooking oil? It's not a vision, it's a reality. Today.
A commercial plane flew across the Atlantic fueled by fat and sugar instead of fossil fuels. It looks like a climate win, but environmentalists say it's too expensive and complex to lead to guilt-free flying. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning from CBC News. I'm Marcia Young. Ottawa will unveil its plan to reduce methane emissions. Canada has been taking part in the COP28 climate summit in Dubai. A key part of the country's plan to reduce oil and gas emissions is new regulations to tackle the methane problem. The CBC's Kyle Bax is in Dubai and joins us now. Kyle, what are we expecting?
Well, this announcement is going to be aimed at the oil patch. In that industry, methane emissions are released into the air through leaks, flaring, and venting. The federal government has a target of reducing methane emissions by 75% by 2030, and today officials will unveil stricter regulations. It's expected the new rules will not only apply to new oil and gas wells and projects, but existing ones as well.
Why focus on methane?
It's considered one of the most potent and harmful gases that contribute to global warming. There is a pretty big focus on methane here at the Global Climate Summit. Some countries, like the United States, have announced their own regulations for methane in recent days. And this morning, U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry said methane wasn't even talked about 7 or 8 years ago, but that's no longer the case.
It's slowly now come into focus where people realize that methane is 80 to 100 times more destructive than CO2. And yet methane only gets about 1% of the funding effort of climate-related expenditure. So that is going to change now.
The Canadian government will unveil its own methane rules later today. I don't expect there will be much pushback from the oil patch. It will likely mean higher expenses, but I just spoke with a Canadian oil patch executive here in Dubai who said her company is on board with being more aggressive in cutting these emissions from its oil and gas operations. And a few dozen clean tech companies in Calgary have developed various systems in recent years designed to do just that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The CBC's Kyle Bax in Dubai. COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber is slamming what he calls attempts to undermine his work at the summit.
This is the first presidency ever to actively call on parties to come forward with language on all fossil fuels for the negotiated text. This is the first ever presidency that does that. How come this doesn't get picked up or mentioned?
Al Jaber is also the CEO of an oil company. He says the phase out of fossil fuels is essential. His role as president of this year's climate summit has been questioned by many environmental groups and advocates. Israel's military operation in Gaza is now focused on the southern city of Khan Yunis. A hospital there says it is overwhelmed with the casualties. Khan Yunis had been serving as a temporary home for many people who had to flee northern Gaza. The UN estimates 1.8 million people have been displaced, and now many of them are being told to move again. IDF spokesperson Jonathan Conricus told CNN this.
We've designated a special humanitarian zone in southern Gaza, close to Khan Yunis, and what we're planning to do is to tell Palestinians ahead of time, evacuate, go to the Muassi, that's the humanitarian zone, and we will tell you when it's safe to go back to your specific neighborhoods.
But the United Nations says a lack of power and 4G cellular service is making it difficult for people to find those safe zones, and it says those designated areas are not safe from disease. They lack clean water and sanitation. Global Affairs Canada says an 8th Canadian citizen is confirmed dead in the Israel-Hamas war. The department says the death was in Lebanon, but it offered no further details. Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon have been trading fire along the border since October 7th. The IDF says it has fired into Lebanon again this morning after a number of launches from Hezbollah fell in northern Israel. A high-profile Hong Kong activist says she's skipping bail and seeking asylum in Canada. Agnes Chow is accused of violating China's national security law. She says she was only allowed to leave Hong Kong if she agreed to return from Canada after her studies were complete. Freelance reporter Patrick Falk has more.
Police violence and abuse of power.
She was one of the most prominent faces of the 2019 anti-government protests in Hong Kong. But since her release from jail for related offences 2.5 years ago, she'd been silent. Then, on Sunday, a bombshell on Instagram marking her 27th birthday. Chow said she will probably never return to Hong Kong and revealed that after she enrolled in university in Toronto, national securities authorities forced her to write a repentance letter saying she regretted her past.
It's hard to say that I'm surprised.
Kevin Yam was a lawyer in Hong Kong for 2 decades and is now a senior fellow at Georgetown University in Washington.
Of how the Hong Kong police has dealt with all this, to use their legal powers in relation to travel restrictions and holding of passports and the like, to extract political confessions from people.
In a statement released today, Hong Kong police urged Chow to return so that she wouldn't be a fugitive. They also confirmed she'd only been granted travel documents to study abroad after cooperating with police. Patrick Poon, who's a visiting researcher at the University of Tokyo, says there may be repercussions for other activists.
Definitely it would affect others who are still in Hong Kong and may try to leave.
The development comes just a week ahead of Hong Kong's district council elections, the first since authorities overhauled the system, ensuring only those who toe the government line can run. Patrick Falk for CBC News, Singapore.
Some patients in Ottawa say they were rostered to family doctors without their knowledge, and most had never met the physician. Nearly a dozen current and former patients of Appletree Medical Group contacted CBC to voice their concerns. Robin Miller brings us the details.
I feel pretty desperate, actually.
Heather Tyler and her family just moved from BC to Ottawa on a military posting, but leaving behind family and friends wasn't the problem.
It was actually scarier for me thinking that I'm no longer going to have regular health care.
When Tyler found Appletree Clinic, she filled out a roster form online, thinking she was only signing up for their walk-in services. She was actually signing up for a doctor.
You don't get any confirmation email. You don't get any further feedback.
Appletree says all of its terms are clearly explained on its website. The group runs a team of more than 200 doctors and specialists across Ontario. It provides both family medicine and walk-in services in a group-based model. Emmanuel Yoko had a similar experience and was told explicitly the group didn't tell patients when they were rostered.
To me, it feels like they're trying to get as many people on their list as possible without actually having to care for them.
In Ontario, doctors are paid in part by the number of patients rostered to their practice. Appletree says that only makes up about 10% of its physicians' income. The Ministry of Health says it's only aware of 2 instances over the past 2 years where Appletree rostered patients without their knowledge. Robin Miller, CBC News, Ottawa.
The new leader of the Ontario Liberals has a big hill to climb. Bonnie Crombie will need to regain official party status at Queen's Park, which the party lost more than 5 years ago. The soon-to-be former mayor of Mississauga is also hoping to challenge Premier Doug Ford in the 2026 election. Ethel Musa has more.
My time as the mayor of Mississauga will be coming to an end.
Ontario's new Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie says she's setting her sights on tackling the issues Ontarians care about, like housing, cost of living, and health care. She's also aiming to lead the Liberals back to official party status after a disastrous 2022 election.
The Ontario Liberal Party has been through some ups and downs, and more downs than we would like in recent years.
Jonathan Scott is a Liberal strategist. He says while the task won't be easy, he believes Crombie can make it happen.
Bonnie is pragmatic and she's fiscally responsible, but she's also an unabashed progressive, particularly on social issues.
But progressive conservative strategist Mitch Heimpel says Crombie will need to work hard to resonate with voters and to siphon away support from the other major parties.
She has to find issues where the Liberals are a credible alternative to the Conservatives, and then she has to convince NDP voters that she's more likely to beat Doug Ford than Merritt Stiles.
And that's not all, says Heimpel.
And then they gotta hope Doug Ford shoots himself in the foot, because right now his ability to survive major issues for his government has bedeviled a few Liberal leaders, and it will bedevil Crombie if she's not careful.
Crombie says the Ontario Liberals will focus on building trust with voters, recruiting new candidates, and fundraising. Ethel Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
And Lane Harrison has more on this story at cbcnews.ca. Click the politics link. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Markusa. This is Information Radio. Welcome to the show. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on the CBC Listen app, or you might be watching us on YouTube. Morning. It is -7. We've got freezing fog being reported. We do have an advisory when it comes to fog for the city of Winnipeg and surrounding areas. So we'll hear more about that in a moment when Pat pops in. Speaking of which, we're going to talk weather this hour. What will we experience in December? It's supposed to be warm later this week, but what about the rest of the month? We're at touch base with the senior climatologist for Environment Canada, so Dave Phillips will be joining us. In addition, this hour on the program, Island Lake formed its own search and recovery team in Manitoba out of a major need. We'll hear that story coming up at 10 to 8. And then to something fun at 7:40. We're going to hear why a world-famous pizza champion in Winnipeg is teaching others the craft of making the perfect pizza pie. So if you want to learn, tune in at 7:40. We'll hear more. Right now to serious matters. Let's find out what is developing in news. Heather Wells is in with headlines.
Good morning. Well, dozens gathered in West Broadway yesterday at a vigil organized by the Bear Clan for the victims of that Langside rooming house shooting. 5 people were shot November 26th. Roberta Owen's nieces, Stephanie and Crystal Beardy, were among the 4 killed. She says they still have unanswered questions and are praying for the 5th victim, a man who is still in hospital, praying that he survives so he can tell his story. And there is no business like snow business, but this year, a lack of snow has some businesses feeling the impact. We'll hear about that in our next local news at 7:30.
We should rewrite that.
I know.
Yeah, right? That's the start of it. Okay, there's a challenge. We've got people captioning pictures already. Maybe they could write a tune for us.
I love it. Do it.
We should do that. In the meantime, though, let's find out about reiterate what you've just said, the fact that we're not going to have any more snow this week.
Nothing much this week, Marcy, that is for sure. We have some cloud cover this morning, a lot of cloud cover over the entire province, actually. A little bit of the Pembina Valley has some clear skies, but we're going to be cloudy this morning. We do expect to see a mix of sun later this morning and then mainly cloudy after that. Well, we'll have clouds kind of coming in the afternoon for sure, but we're at a -7. We're up 1 in the past hour in the downtown. We're going to get today to a -3. Now, tonight dipping down to a -9. Tomorrow a -2, but then Wednesday, Thursday, Marcy, a 7 and a 6 for daytime highs, and Friday a 2 and the possibility of rain showers or flurries. Now, that is Winnipeg's forecast. What's really jumping out for me, and we'll talk to Dave Phillips about this shortly, but 7 and 10 for Brandon on Wednesday and Thursday. But then by next weekend, minus 10 for Winnipeg and Brandon. So we'll get back to more seasonal temperatures by next weekend. But this week, the little bit of snow that we have will be melting. So it is minus 10 right now in Brandon, mostly cloudy on the way to a minus 3, and Thompson is minus 7 on the way to a minus 6. Now, the big story this morning, which kind of dips into traffic as well, is a fog advisory. We have a lot of fog and some mist. My windshield washers were on this morning because of the mist and the fog. And so this extends up into the northern Interlake, to Arborg and Gimli area, west to Portage of Prairie, and then Stonewall Woodlands, and then down into the Pemmican Valley, Morden, Winkler, Altona, and not too far to the east, Vita area, and Richer as well. But that fog advisory is really reducing visibility on the highway. So if there is something to let us know about and it's safe to do so, 788-3093 is the traffic line. So that fog will dissipate a little later this morning. In traffic in the city, we have Watt Street between Tame and Chalmers. Curb lane, there is some sewer work. That's in both directions. And westbound Ellis from Gary to Smith, there is road work as well. Westbound McDermott between Gertie and Harriet. Median lane, some road work as well. And just one more thing, Carlton Street closure, southbound Carlton between Graham Avenue and St. Mary is closed until Friday for building construction. So there we go. 788-3093 is the traffic line.
People are weighing in on Facebook, and you can go on the Instagram page as well. We've done a caption this morning. So we posted a photo of Abby, and to me, he just looks like an old-time movie. He didn't stage this. He just walked in looking like this. How do we describe what he's wearing?
Fluffy earmuffs and holding a tree.
Yes. Yes, that'll do it.
He's like,
a little page boy snap front hat.
He's like, where do you want it? Yeah.
Mr. Christmas. Love it. That's Maureen Bathabella Colleen wrote in and captioned it. Dennis Martin Forster said, I'm going to find me some mistletoe. That was his caption for Abby's photo.
How you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been. Maybe your voice is better for that, right? I'm going to find me some mistletoe. Joyce Marsh wrote in simply, 'tis the season. And Tim Stevenson taking this a different way with his caption. He says, CBC Winnipeg is now a branch office.
Oh, nicely done, Tim.
Monday morning jokes.
There we go.
Caption it if you need a little lift this Monday while you're having your coffee. That's on my Facebook page, Instagram, and you can check it out on YouTube as well. Well, Pat has been talking about it, a mild, even warm week ahead for much of Manitoba. So what will December bring weather-wise the rest of the way? It's always the month where people want to know the most because they're going to be potentially traveling. Maybe you'll be lucky enough to have some time off. David Phillips is the senior climatologist for Environment Canada and with us via Zoom. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy. Nice to be with you. And but Pat is right. I mean, it's just absolutely, this week is really a jaw dropper in terms of the kind of temperatures that would be 14, 15 degrees warmer than normal. I think what I'm sort of focused on is that fact that on Thursday there could not be any freezing temperatures around the clock in Winnipeg. I mean, that's something you just don't see at all. And really, it's been a pattern that we've seen for all fall. September, October, November have been warmer than normal. We saw at the end of summer, the July, August were a little cooler than normal. The beginning was just record warm. So it's kind of flip-flop back and forth, but certainly the last 3 months, very, very mild. And of course, we're seeing a lot of Pacific air, Marcy. And my gosh, what really shocked me is you're seeing a lot of Arctic air. But the Arctic air is warmer than, we're seeing temperatures up in the eastern Arctic that are 15, 30 degrees warmer than normal. I mean, Toronto was colder than Iqaluit last week. And so what we're seeing is a flood of Pacific air, and it may be bringing some northern air, but it's still mild. And so what we don't see is a lot of snow, of course, patches here and there, and snow begets the cold. And so when you don't get the snow, you can't get the cold.
So let me interject here for a second and a couple things you said, though. So first of all, you called this. When we talked in the beginning of October, I was like, the snow's here. It's never going away. And you said, hang on a minute. Yeah, it will. And you were right. But I want to ask you about Thursday. You said Thursday could be this unusual day where around the clock in Winnipeg, we don't dip below zero. Have we ever seen that?
I think you probably have. I mean, it's early in the month, but certainly normal. If we talk about the average December, how many days would you get where the temperature is above freezing. None is what the normal tells you.
Got it.
That's for 30-year average, and you're already going to see 1. And it could be Wednesday night, -1. It could only be 0. So, my gosh, you could have two in a row. So that's quite spectacular. And even, Marcy, when the warm weather kind of ends by the weekend, often in the past, you're punished by some cold Arctic Siberian air.
That's not going to happen.
As Pat says, it's going to just be seasonable temperatures. So it's almost as if this kind of warm sort of a winter heat wave is actually continuing, and it's going right across the West. Very El Nino-like. I mean, I'm not saying it's all El Nino, but what we know is that this is the flavor, the personality of what a lot of people are saying about this particular winter, and so is Environment Canada. We think that this is in fact what nature's got for us.
So
now,
I
don't think it's going to be record warm like that, but my gosh, I think the warm weather kind of continues.
I'll ask you about January last. That'll be the last thing we look at. But I want to ask about Christmas first, Dave, the Christmas season in that period of time. We last had a green Christmas in Manitoba in 1997. Before that, you have to go back to 1938 to find a green Christmas. Do we know what the chances are of a green Christmas, at least in Winnipeg, I suppose, because there's still more snow. I should be respectful of the whole province here. There's some parts of the province that very much don't have all their snow melted. But here in Winnipeg, it's looking like not a lot of white stuff out there. Can you tell if we're going to get more snow before, the 25th?
Marcy, it's very difficult with so many days from now until December 25th. My sense is, I look at the records over, say, 50, 60 years, and there is like I think in my numbers tell me there's like a 97% chance, a 98% chance of a white Christmas. So you had one last year. There was a very, I think there were about 11 or 12 centimeters of snow sitting on the ground, and you had snow in the air. It was almost a Christmas card look to last year. So my sense is it's too early. I would really bet my pension on the fact that Winnipeg will have a white Christmas this year.
Okay,
I just don't.
Don't bet your pension. I just want to put it out there. That's too risky for me. That's
a few
out.
loonies on the fact that it'll be a white Christmas. But if that happens, it will be a shocker to me.
So I mentioned, David, that we would end with January. So what might we see when you look at that full trend of the the next month coming?
Well, Marcy, I think what I often do in weather, if you look at the past, tells what the future is going to be. And I think that El Nino is clearly strong. It's earlier than ever before. It's larger. It's very intense. I mean, clearly this is Pacific air, and it's coming from the tropics, and it's going to be the dominant flow, the circulation. Not every day. I mean, there'll be some polar air that you wonder, well, okay, we live in Winnipeg, and so we expect that. But it'll be the kind of thing that we've seen in November and early December. Okay. Is this kind of, you get some kind of cooler, and then all of a sudden the Pacific air will blow and kick that cold air up to the north. And so I think that is the kind of pattern we're going to see for the rest of the winter.
Always great to have you on. Nice to see you. And if we don't talk before, the white Christmas that you're banking on, happy holidays to you.
Thank you, Marcy. All the best. And to Pat, too. Thank you.
Nice to see you. That's David Phillips, Senior Climatologist with Environment Canada, joining us via Zoom this morning. You're listening to 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on the CBC Listen app.
Ever hear a really good radio show and fall in love right away? Fall in love at first listen with the CBC Listen app. Find CBC radio shows like As It Happens and Now or Never and stream them anytime, anywhere for free. Download CBC Listen today.
7:22 a.m. is the time right now on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. or on that app. And coming up in a few minutes, we'll have morning sports for you. Jets hoping to start another winning streak as they host Carolina tonight. In Winnipeg, -7, freezing fog. And in case you missed the live, beautiful music on Friday, all day long, we had performers in studio for our day to make the season kind in support of Harvest Manitoba. Don't worry, we got you covered if you missed some of the tunes, because to give us a little punctuation point on our final total, we're going to re-air some of those live performances through the show today. The total now this morning as it stands, and I do believe this is final, money raised for Harvest Manitoba over $304,000, $304,815 to be exact with matching. So just incredible. Thank you so much for your generous spirit. And as I mentioned, on Friday, Don Amaro was performing during our program. Here he is with his live version of All I Need for Christmas.
The snow is falling and memories call me back again. Christmas is coming, a New Year's just around the bend. Well, tonight I am thinking there's only one thing I am missing. All that I want this Christmas, all that I need this year, won't be wrapped in ribbons, won't be hidden beneath the tree. Baby, you're all I need. Remember when I was a child, restless nights on Christmas Eve. Couldn't wait to wake up, run downstairs and see my presents everywhere. Now those days are gone. Well, tonight I am restless, just waiting for you to come home. All that I want this Christmas, all that I need this year, won't be wrapped in ribbons, won't be hidden beneath the tree. Baby, you are all I need.
That's Don Amaro's live performance here at CBC in our studio on Friday as part of our day to make the season kind in support of Harvest Manitoba. $304,815 raised. Just incredible in this time of historic need. By the way, if you want to support all of the artists that joined us, and please do, the next up for Don Amaro is on Saturday, this coming Saturday, December the 9th. Amaro Little Christmas, if you want to check it out, 7:30 at the Burton Cummings Theatre. Right now it is 7:25 a.m. on 89.3. I'm Marcy Markusa. It's time for morning sports, and Scott Regehr is with us for that. Hello.
Hey there, Marcy.
So as I mentioned, the Jets are hoping to start another win streak as they host Carolina tonight.
Yeah, they beat Chicago over the weekend, so it's one game and counting. So Carolina, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out between the pipes for the Jets. Carolina among the top goal-scoring teams in the league. However, since the start of November especially, Connor Hellebuck has been easily one of the best goalies in the NHL. Should mention it's also Military Appreciation Night, with the Jets wearing a special alternate jersey designed in honor of the Royal Canadian Air Force team that won gold at the 1948 Olympics. And it's a puck drop of 6:30 to accommodate the network broadcasting the game. So make note of the early start tonight against Carolina.
Meantime, it's also a big day in women's hockey.
It is. Teams in the fledgling Professional Women's Hockey League are going to play each other for the first time today, Marcy. The 6 clubs have assembled in Utica, New York, where they will scrimmage against one another. Not only is this an opportunity to pare down rosters with the regular season beginning in January, this is a chance for the league to experiment a little bit. Here is PWHL Commissioner Jana Hefford.
For us on a hockey ops, on a game presentation, on the marketing side, we have an opportunity to try some things and make sure that when we launch in January, we're ready to go. So it can be a little bit experimental for us in certain ways, but also it's going to provide a really great evaluation process for the GMs and the head coaches.
So scrimmages starting today, Marcy, will follow the NHL rule book, although there may be variations to how rules around things like power plays and icing are called, and the league may also run overtime and shootouts regardless of game scores, just to allow teams to practice those situations. I like this, though. They're considering in-game music, kind of like what we see with the Toronto Raptors. So they'll test and see whether that's a fit. Ultimately, the goal is to produce the best product possible, not just from a quality of play standpoint, but also keeping quality of entertainment in mind as well. Season's tickets for all 6 teams in the league, including the 3 north of the border in Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal, go on sale this morning.
Can you play any sport with music yourself?
I find it very distracting.
Me too.
Very, very distracting. They do it in professional lacrosse as well. It's all part of the shtick, but yeah, it's odd to me.
I golf with some players that have a speaker going. And yeah, I'm like the kid at the concert. I need to wear big noise canceling headphones while I'm driving or something.
Yeah, no, I'm with you for sure.
I find it distracting too. Yeah, some people love it. All right, let's head south of the border before you go. In a brewing controversy in college football down there.
Yeah, this involves, Marcy, the process used to determine the national champion in the sport. Right now, a committee using polls, computerized rankings, and strength of schedule to guide them decides the teams that make the Final Four. And yesterday, that committee chose Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama. Many furious since Alabama lost a game this season while a school like Florida State went undefeated. Florida State, the first school of its size to be excluded from the playoffs despite not losing a game. Here's why. Florida State's lost both of its first 2 quarterbacks to injury, and so they're going to have a freshman third stringer in the playoffs. And the committee chose Alabama instead, thinking they'll be more competitive. But the Crimson Tide are also a huge name in college football. They're going to draw massive TV ratings, bigger than Florida State would. Speaking to CNN, reporter Rachel Nichols says this is all a matter of NCAA politics.
I got to be frank about this. Anyone who expected this process to be fair about what the teams that would be the most deserving just hasn't been paying attention. This process is about making money. This is not about some honorable calling. This is about a sport that has said from the very beginning, we want to try to milk this cow as much as possible. And if you're not interested in playing that, I don't know, maybe switch to track and field or something that's determined by a stopwatch instead of a dozen people in a room behind closed doors in Texas.
Well said, Rachel Nichols. The national championship takes place January 8th. I've got bowl game fatigue, and I have for years. What I will watch, though, is the Myrtle Beach Bowl, December 16th, and that's because Canadian quarterback Curtis Rourke, Nathan's younger brother, and expected to be the first pick in the CFL draft, he's trying to lead Ohio University to that title.
All right, thanks a lot, Scott.
You betcha.
Scott Regier with Morning Sports. He's back tomorrow, 7:25. That's the time we do sports on the show. The show is Information Radio here on CBC 89.3 or on our YouTube channel or on the app. Freezing fog, -7 in Winnipeg, a fog advisory, in fact. And still ahead, pizza. Man, I love pizza. Are you one of those people too? Well, if you are, you might want to learn how to make world-famous pizza like a champ. Stay tuned. You might get your chance here in the city. We'll explain after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, we do have fog and frost, and it is -7 right now. We'll warm up to -3, and we will see a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon. Honoring victims of a mass shooting. Dozens gathered in West Broadway yesterday as the Bear Clan held a vigil at the Langside rooming house where 5 people were shot November 26th. Roberta Owen's nieces, Stephanie and Crystal Beardy, were among the 4 people killed. She says the family still has unanswered questions. They're praying the 5th victim, a 55-year-old man still in hospital, survives.
Something so horrific like this, for 4 people that are deceased. We're just praying for the one that's still in the hospital to live through this, and hopefully something will come from his story too.
Police have arrested a 32-year-old man in connection with the attack. Jamie Randy Felix is charged with 4 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Global Affairs Canada has announced the death of an 8th Canadian citizen in the Israel-Hamas war. The department says the death was in Lebanon, but offered no further details. Israel and Hezbollah militants in Lebanon have been trading fire along the border since Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it has expanded its ground operations across Gaza and ordered more evacuations in the crowded south. Mark Regev is a senior advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister.
As we pursue Hamas, and we will destroy Hamas in parallel, it's incumbent upon us as a democratic society to make every effort possible to limit civilians being caught up in the crossfire between the Israeli Defense Forces and the Hamas terrorists.
Global Affairs Canada also says 130 Canadians left Gaza through the Rafah border crossing with Egypt this weekend. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A northern Manitoba search and rescue team has recently been expanded. The First Nations team takes deep dives to bring closure to families after drownings. CBC's Aaron Broman has their story.
Volunteers from 4 Island Lake communities are in boats scouring the water. Kurt Mason got an urgent call over his two-way radio.
Bring your diving equipment right away. And once you're here, they kept saying.
The man he's been looking for went out in his boat the week before and didn't return. Using an underwater camera, the chief of Garden Hill First Nation found his body near an island. Mason and 2 other divers boated over to him and geared up.
It was so cold. It was so cold.
Eventually, they found the body and brought it to the surface.
That's something that we have to do.
The team has 15 certified scuba divers from around the region, which has about 15,000 people between 4 communities. They're isolated and connected by water most of the year and can't always rely on RCMP to immediately search. Mason says when needed, he'd dive again.
I just want to bring closure to family because it's hard.
He says the man's father personally thanked them once they got back to shore. Aaron Broman, CBC News, Garden Hill First Nation.
An Indigenous-led homeless shelter wants to bring safety and security in its first winter running Thompson's Homeless Shelter. Manitoba Kiiwetinowi Okemakanak, the Northern Chiefs Group, took over operations of what is now called the Wellbriety Centre in July. The centre's manager, Gina Spence, says eventually a sobering centre will be added, but not right away.
At this point, not right now. I'm just working at keeping the shelter open, ensuring that, food security is good for them. Because we've only been open for 6 months, we're still learning about a lot of things.
Spence says the Wellbriety Centre will have a medical van patrolling Thompson streets to see if anyone needs help this winter. The Manitoba legislature was packed yesterday, Saturday afternoon, but not just with politicians. It was the annual open house. Dan Huang visited the building for the first time this weekend.
I'm curious because it's, to me, it's a mystery place. Seems like, so I want to be here.
Huang and her family have been living in Winnipeg for just over 2 years. She says the open house is a great way to learn about government. Well, not everyone is cheering this lack of snow we have in southern Manitoba. Some business owners are feeling the impacts. Brian Burke owns Olympia Ski and Snow. He says Winnipeggers need to see cold and flurries before gearing up for the season.
Winnipeggers need to see both before they'll buy warmer jackets, before they'll buy a lot of cross-country ski packages. And on a personal level, I'm a skier. I need to get out there, and it's in between seasons. So it's not fun.
And he also says cross-country skiing season is short, which is why he's anxious to see the snow. You can see more Manitoba news. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
So Heather Wells, usually in the news we talk about anonymous tips. But this morning we actually have to talk about an anonymous gift for our friend Pakanuga, who's about to retire, as we announced last week on the air for the first time. But you found this on your desk on the way in. What is it, a T-shirt?
It was in a bag. It just said happy retirement.
Hold it up.
Look, I can hold it up for our YouTube audience now.
Yeah.
It is the first annual WKRP Turkey Drop shirt, which I just love because every time Thanksgiving comes up, the clip from Les Nessman shows up on YouTube and in feeds and things like that. But I loved this show as a kid. It shaped me in my career. So
I love that.
It's anonymous, though. So whoever got that for me, thank you, thank you.
I love that.
Really appreciate that. So Abby has his duck shirt this morning, but I have the WKRP shirt.
So who were you of those characters on that iconic television show from back in the day?
I wanted to be Johnny Fever.
Did you?
I wanted to be a DJ growing up as a kid, and then I ended up here.
Johnny Fever. He was the nighttime DJ, for those of you that never saw this show.
He was the morning man. He was the morning man.
Was he?
Yes.
Oh, see, I mixed it up. I thought he was the nighttime guy.
No, I loved that show, and we could relate to all of them. And Herb Tarlick, the salesman, was so funny.
I was probably the radio equivalent of, I was Les Nessman. I was, because my early career was all covering hog barns and growth in that industry in southeastern Manitoba. So people actually used to call me Les Nessman.
Well, you do have 4 Buckeye News Hawk Awards, I think, as well, Marcy, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Oh, that's nice little
Yeah,
thing
it
to
is.
find on a Monday morning. Maybe you'll find something lovely on your Monday morning as well, listeners. What you will find out there that is not lovely at all, it's actually quite concerning. I'm looking out the window right now, Pat. Look how this fog is just enveloping downtown Winnipeg.
It really has. Usually when it's foggy, we'll see the fog kind of higher up in the air, but it is down right here in
Street
the
level.
At the corner of Portage and Spence. Pretty foggy. So we have this fog advisory, including the city of Winnipeg and a good part of southern Manitoba and even into the northern Interlake. So it was issued this morning just before 4 o'clock. And there's so many areas, but I'll just talk about northern Interlake. So Arborg, Hecla, Fisher River, Gypsumville, Ashern, and then into Selkirk, Gimli, Stonewall, out to the west, Portage, Prairie, Headingley, Brunkild, Carmen, down into the Red River Valley as well, and into the east, so St. Adolphe, Emerson to the southwest, and Vida and Richer, just east of the city as well. So thick fog, areas of dense fog have developed, and it is reducing visibility and could be hazardous as well. Shelley from Camp Morton, her passenger sent us a picture from Highway 8 this morning near Gimli, and just a couple of car links basically. So know that this is going to be an issue if you're heading out on the highway this morning, but certainly in town as well, it is very, very foggy and some mist in the air. Now, with that fog and those atmospheric conditions, we have right now a -7. We're going to get today to a daytime high of -3. We'll see that fog dissipating this morning. We'll see some sunshine, and then we'll see a mix of sun and cloud as well. It's quite cloudy over the entire province this morning, looking at satellite imagery right now at 7:39 in the morning. Tonight, we'll dip down to a -9 and tomorrow -2. And then, as Dave Phillips talked about last half hour, just an anomaly, 7 and 6 here on Wednesday and Thursday. Over in Brandon, 7 and 10 for temperatures on Wednesday and Thursday. But by the weekend, we're back to seasonal with a -10 for Sunday, the daytime high. Speaking of Brandon, -10 right now on the way to a -3. Don't have reports of fog in that Brandon area. It's more a little bit east of Brandon. Tonight, dipping down to a -14, and tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud and 2. And Thompson up Highway 6, good morning, -7 right now on the way to a -6. You're pretty much going to stay where you are right now with cloudy skies. Tonight, -16, and tomorrow, increasing clouds near noon. Some fog patches maybe tomorrow morning as well for you, Thompson, when you wake up. High of -6 tomorrow. We are looking at some warmish temperatures continuing here. I see -1s in places such as Melita and Verdun today, where it's -6. Gimli's -15 with the fog to a -5. Morden Winkler -11 to a -2. Churchill, you're -8. You're pretty much going to stay there at -9. And Dauphin, Parkland area, -10 on the way to a 6. And we're -7 again right now. One last just traffic mention as well. If there is anything to let us know about in the city or on the highway, 788-3093 is the traffic line to reach me. Of course, if traffic volumes are increasing on Salter, McPhillips, and Main because of the Arlington Bridge.
Fred called. Stalled car eastbound Middle Lane on Dugald Road around Plessy, so in Transcona there. So thanks for the call, Fred. Use the number.
And Julie gave us a call as well, I forgot. And she said that right around William and right around the HSC area, William and Logan, shift change possibly. It's super, super busy and taking a little while to get through that intersection. So thank you for the call, Julie. Once again, 788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Pat.
Thanks.
Thank you, commuters. And next on the show, Thomas Schneider says that pizza is his business and he does it well. So well that he is a world champion in pizza. Yep. It's a real thing, a world pizza champ. He started making pizza at just 15 years old with a dream of opening his own shop. He opened his first franchise at 19 years old in Dallas, Texas. Today, he's the owner of Tommy's Pizzeria in Winnipeg. But for the first time ever, he's now offering pizza making lessons to the public, which is why we're talking about it this morning. It has people like Ziggy excited.
I want to make the perfect pizza today, like a real nice crust pizza.
Is this something you've been looking forward
Yes.
to? Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Well, what's your favorite pizza?
Anything that has spinach and feta and chicken.
Ziggy is one of the people that was out with their class from MC College for a Christmas party, and as part of the fun, they showed up as a group to learn how to make championship pizza. So why is holding these classes important to Thomas Schneider, to Tommy? CBC's Jim Agapito went to find out.
Every time I make a pizza, it's like I'm making a work of art. I wasn't very artistic growing up, so this is a way for me to express my artistic side.
And so now you have these classes. Why did you want to do that?
Winter is always a very difficult time to get through. I'm going to try focusing on doing some cooking classes where I let people come behind the counter and make pizzas like we would on a normal day. And I think it's a pretty cool experience. It's one-on-one with me. And I think it's really great for staff bonding events. It's really good for date nights. It's good for a family. I have a few families that have booked, and they're very excited for it. It's good for birthday gifts, and it's just a really fun experience.
You're a world champion pizza maker. Now tell me, how does one become a world champion?
So yeah, you have to be asked to join the World Pizza Champions team, and Tony Gemignani, who is the founder of the group, single-handedly picks people to be on the team. You have to go around the world and compete in competitions. So in 2019, I went to Parma, Italy in the World Pizza competition, and I got Best Pizza Maker for Canada. So that's a pretty big award. And then they asked me to join the World Pizza Champions team while we were all in Italy together. So when I first went to pizza school, and Tony was my instructor, he's the biggest pizza guy in the entire world. He's won the most awards. He's a 13 world time pizza champion. And I go to put my first pizza in the oven, and I make a mess of the pizza. It falls everywhere in the oven, and it starts to burn. And when you're actually at his cooking classes, you're working in his actual restaurants. So I kind of messed up the whole night for them. So that's probably one of the most embarrassing stories I have.
But obviously you redeemed yourself by becoming a world champion.
We're actually really close friends now, and he's been a really great mentor. That's what's always important when your mentor thinks you're doing a good job. So
what did you make?
I made our spicy honey, actually, our Tommy Special pizza. So I had to source all the ingredients while we were there. So we toured the Prosciutto di Parma plant, as well as the Parmesan Reggiano plant, and I got some Parmesan from the plant as well as the prosciutto right from the plant, and that's what I used in the competition.
And after that, is that when you decided to start your own pizza business?
So I actually started out in Winnipeg inside of Trans-Canada Brewing Company. I opened there in 2017 a place called Timmy Tom's Pizzeria. And before that, I was in Texas for 5 years. I opened and owned and operated 2 Papa John's pizza franchises for about 5-6 years.
What makes a good pizza?
It all starts with the dough. So our dough that we use at Tommy's, it's a 48-hour cold ferment. So we won't use the dough for at least 2 days so that it allows all the flavors and the malt and the yeast to all work together. There's actually a lot of science behind dough. So I went to pizza school in San Francisco with Tony Gemignani, his pizza school, and I learned all about Neapolitan and Italian-style pizzas. And then I went back a second time and I learned how to make the American-style pizza. So New York, Detroit, Chicago, the styles that we carry at Tommy's currently. Yeah. There's honestly probably over 40 different styles of pizza. So at Tommy's we do New York style, Detroit style. We have a new thin crust tavern style pizza. It's actually a Chicago cracker thin pizza, but for simplicity we're going to call it a tavern style in Winnipeg. So the difference between a New York style and a Detroit style dough is a New York style is round and a Detroit style is square and it's cooked in a pan. And it has hardened aged cheddar around the crust, and the sauce actually goes on top of all the toppings, and it's a lot thicker than a normal New York style pizza, but it's airy and light inside.
Okay, can you show me making a pizza?
Yeah, for sure, we can do that, yeah. So which pizza would you like to see?
Got to be the special.
This is just to keep the honey at temperature so we can put it on the pizzas. So I am taking the dough out of the dough tray and I'm moving it onto the counter, dusting it with some flour, that's right. So right now I'm going around and I'm going to form the crust. So I do it on both sides. And I'm going to pick it up and toss it. That also helps get some of the flour off. I'm going to grab my spicy honey now. I'm going to put it on the base of the pizza in a little circle. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some mozzarella cheese on it.
How do you know how much of the honey to put on?
At Tommy's, we just go and make it like a craft pizza. Cover all the spots with cheese and make sure I don't have any on the crust. And then I'm going to put this in the oven. Typically, a lot of the toppings will go on before it gets cooked, but with the Tommy Special, everything but the honey and the mozzarella gets put on after.
And what is the choice for that?
We put burrata on after, and arugula, and lemon zest and stuff like that. So all that stuff, it would taste a lot different. It would melt different if we put it on before we put it in the oven. Okay, so that takes about 7 to 10 minutes to cook. So we'll just wait for that, and I'll spin it a couple times while it's in the oven. Like, everyone loves pizza, so it's always nice to see a smile on the customer's face when you bring a nice pizza to the table. So, and everyone always has a good time.
I kind of agree. Most people do love pizza. So that is Jim Agapito talking to Thomas Schneider, the owner of Tommy's Pizzeria on Corridon. He just started having classes, so you can check out if you might want to attend a class and learn how to make world championship pizza.
There are stories you just can't stop thinking about. They take you somewhere, they introduce you to someone, they share something new with you.
Liftoff.
Those are the stories you want to share with your friends, and CBC's award-winning documentary team is bringing them to you every week on Storylines. Storylines, new this season on CBC Radio 1, and always on demand on the CBC Listen app.
12 minutes to 8 o'clock Monday morning. How's everybody doing? I'm Marcy Markusa with our team here at the show. Thanks for joining us on CBC 89.3 FM or on our YouTube channel or on the app. Pat is in with an update on traffic. What's going on?
Well, getting calls about this fog. Could be 2 incidents around Deacon's Corner, just east of the city, impacting both westbound and eastbound traffic. So there's some emergency crews right around Deacon's, but then a couple of kilometers west of Deacon's as well, apparently. It could be the same thing, but it sounds like there's 2 different incidents going on with emergency crews in attendance, so it's slow going in that area. Also, Dennis just called pedestrians. Watch out for pedestrians. He said he saw someone almost get clipped just coming off the Disraeli into the downtown. And on a day like today, sometimes people just hit that walk button for the crosswalk, and I noticed don't even look. So do keep an eye out for pedestrians today. It is very, very foggy out there on the roads and inside the city as well. It's really something to... Yeah, it's very low-lying fog here at the corner of Portage and Spence as well. It's quite something to see. But 788-3093 is the traffic line. Thank you for the calls.
All right. Thank you, Pat. Well, coming up on the program after 8 o'clock, the first in our special series of stories produced by students through Sisler High School's CREATE program. So we'll tell you a little bit later this hour about what we can expect after 8. From one of the Winnipeg teens involved in the creation of these stories. So stay with us. Right now, though, let's visit more details on a story you might have heard in the news this morning. Island Lake is made up of 4 communities, and 3 of them are surrounded by water. For most of the year, the only way in or out is by boat or plane until it's cold enough for an ice road. Well, Harold Taylor, a man from Garden Hill First Nation, went missing when he went out on his boat to collect firewood on November 1st. And it sparked an extensive search by crews from Red Sucker Lake, Garden Hill, St. Teresa Point, and Wasagmac First Nations, as well as RCMP family and the local police. The chief of Garden Hill was searching by boat with an underwater camera and ultimately was the one, sadly, that found Taylor's body near an island close to Garden Hill. Kurt Mason had been using sonar equipment to search the lake, and after this man's body was found, he was called in to dive. Ugugik is a Nishnanu for people who go underwater, and they carry out underwater recovery after drowning to help bring closure to families and to the communities. They say they're the only First Nation scuba diving recovery team in Canada. CBC's Aaron Broman, who was recently in northern Manitoba to cover the story, spoke with Tanya McDougall, a newer member of the Island Lake Search and Rescue Team. Tanya was inspired to join when Tammy Nataway went missing in Garden Hill.
I was one of the women that went into, we stepped into the water in our ribbon skirts and we sang, like as our prayer to them. But we were on the shores of St. Teresa and they were diving closer to Garden Hill, I think, or Wasagmac, and we were just praying, you know. And while we were singing, like I sang the water song, and I was thinking, as women, First Nations women, we carry the water teachings, and that's when I was thinking, I think I need to join the dive team, if not to actually dive, to at least be a part of the team, so that they have a woman on that team. I asked Edward and Ivan for direction on what I can do, and they told me who to contact. Our contacts are at Diver City in Winnipeg. And yeah, I signed up with them to get trained as a scuba diver 2 years ago. I had to have a very big talk with myself, like mentally, emotionally. Would I be ready? Like, should I come face to face with that situation? I wouldn't have pursued it if the answer wasn't yes. I continue to feel that way. Even when I was diving a couple of weeks ago, when Ivan asked each of us, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable? That's one of the questions I was asking myself in my head. Am I ready for this? Should I have that experience? The answer was yes. I felt more strongly about contributing to helping the affected families and community. I felt more strongly about that than I had any fear.
So they pulled the body up, and I was probably about 10 minutes. We were underwater. Then after the rope was tied to not lose that body, it was tied to the leg, and somebody from the boat had that rope, and we let it go. That's when me and George and Roland were in the water, just floating and giving. We were hugging each other and stuff like that. We just hovered. We were just floating in the water after that. There was a lot of people there, and there's just not chaotic, but everybody was just rushing. I didn't even know who pulled me out from there. But we had a lot of help. It was so cold. It was so cold. First place I noticed the cold water was hitting me was on my feet. Because a little bit of the water was seeping in there on my forehead. Because I didn't have my goggles on when I dove in. So I started to feel pinching because of the cold water. I couldn't even lift myself when I got on the boat. The equipment was too heavy. I was so tired, and I was just laying on the boat for a while. No energy. All my energy just dropped after we pulled that body out.
What kind of kicked it off for you? Why did you want to get involved or do this?
Back in, I think it was about 2004 or something, or 2002, around there. But anyway, his brother-in-law by the name of Bradley Flett went missing, Like we weren't sure. That was in the fall, like just after freeze-up. They kind of had an idea where he kind of took off on the snowmobile. When we were doing the search, like the whole community, that's how the community works. That we all jump in together and we help, like try and locate him, try and figure out what happened. Then he headed out towards the west of St. Teresa Point, and probably about 4 or 5 miles away. Like there was open water at the time, or maybe it just froze over. So we kind of had an idea or an assumption that is probably where he went underwater, if in fact he went underwater. It was through that channel somewhere, or right through the open, like he might have went under. And every time we ask our CMP dive team or their search and recovery team to participate, they won't just go in, right? Unless they think there's something down there, like for certain. The community feels disappointed, like they feel that the RCMP hasn't done enough. So I even started talking, he wasn't satisfied, so he said, you know what, I think I'll try and start a dive team. So he's the one that kind of did all the paperwork, the proposals, and we took it to our local employment and training program where they do, if the community feels, or the director, he'll bring it to the chief and council, and if they feel that it's a viable training that would benefit the community, they will definitely support it, right? So they funded our training there. So we operated like that since 2004, about 2004, with just the three of us. But we felt that we needed some more young people. And this is where we started. I approached the communities of Garden Hill and Wasagamak if they would be interested in sponsoring to train their young people or not just young people, but their people for a diver training, right? They responded. Wasagamak said they will definitely get on board. And so, we sent out 10, 4 from Garden Hill, 4 from Wasagamak, 3 from here, and then 3 from Garden Hill. So, we sent out 10. Then we became 13. Then the following year, this lady approached me and said, "Hey, I want to take up diver training too. I like what you guys are doing," which is Tanya, eh? So she joined the team. She paid her own way, paid everything, covered everything, and she became part of the team.
That was Edward Flett, a longtime member of the dive team, as well as Kurt Mason and Tanya McDougall. CBC's Aaron Broman spoke with all three during our recent visit to Island Lake. It is right now 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's get to news headlines with Heather Walls.
Good morning. Well, dozens of people placed roses and white candles on the steps of a rooming house on Langside yesterday in a vigil for 5 people who were shot there a week ago. 4 were killed. 1 remains in hospital. Beverly Beardy's daughters, Stephanie and Crystal, both died, and Beardy says she's grateful to the police and homicide detectives for all their work. An Indigenous-led homeless shelter wants to bring safety and security in its first winter running Thompson's Homeless Shelter. We're going to hear more about the Variety Center in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, let's start with the commute here. We've got real deal fog going on. In the city of Winnipeg, it's low-lying, taken off the tops of the buildings out our studio window in downtown Winnipeg. Freezing fog and -7 is the actual temperature currently. Supposed to be sunny and -3 for the day, but this fog's affecting all kinds of things. Greg called from Highway 7 Stonewall to Winnipeg saying the fog's as thick as pea soup. Fred called, there's a stalled car eastbound Middle Lane on Dugald Road, so be careful around that. And then back to the fog, well, I shouldn't say the fog, but another incident. Emergency crews are tending to an incident on number 1 east of the city near Deacon's Corner, so it's slow going there. But the fog advisory extends through Winnipeg and outlying areas. Call us if you need 788-3093.
On Cue with Tom Power.
The Osage took their name from Missouri and Osage rivers.
Lily Gladstone is the breakout star of the film Killers of the Flower Moon, one of the most talked about films of the year. She'll tell you why she was grateful that this very indigenous story wasn't told by Martin Scorsese, but told with him. That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
A commercial plane flew across the Atlantic fueled by fat and sugar instead of fossil fuels. It looks like a climate win, but environmentalists say it's too expensive and complex to lead to guilt-free flying. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning from CBC News. I'm Marcia Young. Israel's military is pushing farther south into Gaza. The IDF says it has struck 200 more Hamas targets overnight, and it is warning people to leave another 20 areas. Bombing there is expected to intensify. Palestinians are being told to move temporarily to designated humanitarian zones. But aid groups say there are no safe places left. Abby Dawson has the latest.
The fire and smoke can't be heard at this Khan Yunis house, but at least 2 people were killed according to Reuters, and the structure is rubble now, fully destroyed. There will be more of this. Israeli Army spokesperson Daniel Hagari says it will extend its ground operation against Hamas targets in all of the Gaza Strip. The IDF says it is not trying to permanently displace Palestinians. The UN says up to 1.8 million people have been forced from their homes since October 7th into an even narrower area. The IDF has published a map of Gaza broken up into more than 2,400 blocks. It says it will tell Palestinian civilians when to move out of their block into safe zones.
This dangerous narrative about safe places.
James Elder is with UNICEF.
When I see children after children wheeled in, run in, parents screaming on stretchers with horrendous wounds of war, one after the other, hour after the other.
He says bombs drop every 10 minutes, but disease is also a threat.
Safe places have no water, no sanitation. They've learned that they're not safe in shelters. The bombardments are relentless.
The Hamas-run health authority says more than 15,000 Palestinians have been killed in the last 8 weeks. There is intense pressure on the government of Israel to protect civilians. In a recent speech, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said Israel risks strategic defeat if it drives people into the arms of Hamas. Abby Dawson, CBC News, London.
Israeli organizations and police are gathering accounts of sexual violence from the October 7th attacks. Yael Shearer is founder and director of the Lobby to Combat Sexual Violence. She told the BBC her group has spoken to eyewitnesses and some survivors of the Hamas attacks.
You can imagine these are not easy descriptions. A lot of the bodies were mutilated, and Hamas terrorists made sure to disgrace these people and dishonor them in many ways.
Shearer says there are more than 1,000 crime scenes from that day, and this will likely be the biggest investigation Israeli police have ever conducted. Ottawa will unveil its plan to reduce methane emissions later this hour in Dubai. That is where Canada has been taking part in the COP28 Climate Summit. A key part of the plan to bring down oil and gas emissions is new regulations to tackle the methane problem. The CBC's Kyle Bax is in Dubai with more. And Kyle, what are we expecting?
Well, this announcement is going to be aimed at the oil patch. In that industry, methane emissions are released into the air through leaks, flaring, and venting. The federal government has a target of reducing methane emissions by 75% by 2030, and today officials will unveil stricter regulations. It's expected the new rules will not only apply to new oil and gas wells and projects, but existing ones as well.
Why focus on methane?
It's considered one of the most potent and harmful gases that contribute to global warming. There is a pretty big focus on methane here at the Global Climate Summit. Some countries, like the United States, have announced their own regulations for methane in recent days. And this morning, U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry said methane wasn't even talked about 7 or 8 years ago, but that's no longer the case.
It's slowly now come into focus where people realize that methane is 80 to 100 times more destructive than CO2. And yet methane only gets about 1% of the funding effort of climate-related expenditure. So that is going to change now.
The Canadian government will unveil its own methane rules later today. I don't expect there will be much pushback from the oil patch. It will likely mean higher expenses, but I just spoke with a Canadian oil patch executive here in Dubai who said her company is on board with being more aggressive in cutting these emissions from its oil and gas operations. And a few dozen clean tech companies in Calgary have developed various systems in recent years designed to do just that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The CBC's Kyle Bax in Dubai. Also at the COP28 summit, the Prime Minister of Barbados calling for global governance when it comes to addressing the climate crisis.
To facilitate the preservation of both people and planet, it is a false dichotomy to believe that we can save one without the other. The planet needs global governance, not in a big stick way, but in a simple way of us cooperating with each other to be able to work with the institutions that we have.
Motley says there are a number of middle-income countries that need help if they are going to adapt to the new climate reality. She says more nations need to focus strategically when it comes to climate vulnerability. People living along India's southern coast are preparing for Cyclone Meghjam. An ambulance slowly drives through flooded streets in Chennai, India. Torrential rain has already hit the city. The cyclone is forecast to make landfall tomorrow. The coastline along the state of Tamil Nadu and neighboring Andhra Pradesh are expected to get the brunt of the storm. Today, schools and offices are closed in Chennai. Flights in and out of the airport have been canceled or diverted, and thousands of residents have been forced to leave. India's weather office says it is expecting winds up to 100 kilometers an hour when the cyclone lands. Venezuelans have said yes to their government claiming an oil-rich part of Guyana. The weekend referendum is the latest in a 19th century territorial dispute between the nations, fueled by the offshore resource. Freelance reporter Manuel Reda is tracking developments.
Venezuelan officials celebrated the referendum results, with claims that the vast majority of voters said yes to questions about the Essequibo region. Voters were asked whether they rejected a century-old ruling that granted most of the Essequibo region to Guyana, and also if they rejected Guyana's recent use of the Essequibo's territorial waters. Large oil deposits were discovered off the region's shores in 2016, and Guyana has been developing them with the help of American oil companies. Now, Guyana's oil boom could be affected by Venezuela's claims. Guyanese President Irfan Ali urged Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro to settle the dispute at the International Court of Justice.
We call upon them once more to join us in demonstrating maturity and responsibility and in allowing the rule of law to work and to determine the outcome of this controversy.
The referendum over the Essequibo territory comes as President Maduro's popularity plummets amid a prolonged economic crisis. Critics of Maduro say the president is looking for a cause that will boost his popularity in the run-up to next year's presidential election. Manuel Rueda, CBC News, Bogotá.
A northern Manitoba search and rescue team has recently expanded. The First Nations team takes deep dives after drownings happen. As the CBC's Aaron Broman reports, it brings closure to grieving families.
We need hot tea and coffee.
Volunteers from 4 Island Lake communities are in boats scouring the water. Kurt Mason got an urgent call over his two-way radio.
Bring your diving equipment right away. And once you're here, they kept saying.
The man he's been looking for went out in his boat the week before and didn't return. Using an underwater camera, the chief of Garden Hill First Nation found his body near an island. Mason and 2 other divers boated over to him and geared up.
It was so cold. It was so cold.
After 10 minutes and at a depth of 5 meters, they found the body and brought it to the surface.
Not a sight that anybody would want to see, but that's something that we have to do.
The team has 15 certified scuba divers from around the region, which has about 15,000 people between 4 communities. They're isolated and connected by water most of the year and can't always rely on RCMP to immediately search. Tanya McDougall is one of 2 women on the team. She says she had to think hard about the recovery part before she joined.
Helping the affected families and communities. I felt more strongly about that than I had any fear.
Chief Charles Nod of Garden Hill First Nation says it was hard to see what he saw.
But it was a relief for the whole community of Island Lake.
And Mason says when needed, he'd go again.
We just want to bring closure to families because it's hard.
He says the man's father personally thanked them once they got back to shore. Aaron Broman, CBC News, Garden Hill First Nation.
And that is World Report. I'm Marcy Young.
That story from Aaron gathered during our recent trip, our CBC Manitoba Communities in Focus trip to explore different areas of our province. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Markusa, and we are sitting in the middle of Winnipeg this morning, live from downtown foggy Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on the CBC Listen app or on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. This half hour on the program, we might have fog, but we do not have a lot of snow, and some snow sport enthusiasts might be a little concerned right now. It's December, and it could be a problem. We're going to hear from a Winnipeg cross-country ski business and some snowmobilers about how they're feeling about all of this warm December weather. Also this half hour on the show, we're going to meet a Winnipeg teenager who took up an ancient form of martial arts to reconnect with her culture. Now at the age of 14, she's a world champion. We'll have her story. Stay with us. Right now, Heather Wells has updates and headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, dozens gathered in West Broadway yesterday honoring the victims of a shooting there at a rooming house on Langside. 5 people were shot, 4 were killed, and Stephanie and Crystal Beardy's mom was there. The 2 sisters were killed. She says they still have unanswered questions and are praying for the 5th victim, a 55-year-old man still in hospital, saying they hope he survives to tell his story. MKO is entering into its first winter running the homeless shelter in Thompson. Manitoba, Kuwait now Okemakanak, the Northern Chiefs Group, took over operations of that shelter in July. We're going to hear what they have planned for this winter in Thompson in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, in Winnipeg, we're about to talk about how foggy it is, and in some parts of Manitoba, but I'll tell you what, if you're around Brandon, not so much. So Pat and I each actually got some gorgeous photos. So yours is of what?
So Jeff from the Westman Storm Chasers texted me on my cell phone, a beautiful morning in Brandon. No fog out that way. It's all further east of Brandon. Brandon for the city. How
so
about
that
you?
sunrise that you're looking
sunrise
at?
in Brandon. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, this is the halfway tree, actually, from a listener. Beautiful morning at the halfway tree. So this is if you're going Winnipeg to Brandon, there's an iconic tree. If you make the drive, it's the halfway tree. And same thing. It just looks like an orange creamsicle. You really, that's such a contrast to what we're seeing in other parts of Manitoba with this fog.
Yeah, just east of there, we have this fog advisory for a good part of southern Manitoba. So even up into the northern Interlake, into that Ashern area, Gypsumville, and down into the Red River Valley, Pembina Valley, Morden, Winkler, Altona, Morris, east to, let's see here, Richer and Vida and Emerson, St. Adolphe areas as well, but west, not at all. So it is thick. I can't remember a morning this foggy, Marcy, in the last couple of years here in the downtown. It is thick, low-lying fog, and we're hearing from people on the highways as well about that. We heard from Greg. Stonewall, number 7 from Stonewall to Winnipeg, thick as pea soup, he said. And Sean gave us a call as well. Inside the city, pretty foggy as well. He's going over the Disraeli and coming into downtown. He said to watch out for pedestrians. And heard as well from Shelley and Camp Morton, number 8 near Gimli. It was certainly foggy. So very, very foggy out there. This will dissipate later in the morning. We have a lot of cloud cover over much of the province. And right now we've been sitting at -7 all morning. And that's where we are right now. We're going to get to a -3 today. And we should see some sun eventually. And we'll see a mix of sun and cloud later this morning into the afternoon as well. Then we're cloudy tonight. A -9 for the overnight. A -2 tomorrow. Wednesday, Thursday, 7 and 6. That's on the plus side, not the negative side. So +7, +6. And then by next weekend, though, we're back to seasonal -10 for daytime highs. I mentioned this earlier this morning, if you're just joining us, 10 degrees Thursday in Brandon. So again, just some wacky weather here for this first full week of December, I should say. It is in Brandon right now, -10 on the way to a -3. In Thompson, you're -7. You're pretty much going to stay there today. I'll mention that traffic line just once again if there's anything else to tell us about. We heard about a possible emergency cruise over around Deacon's Corner, east of the city on Highway 1. If there's any update from there and it's safe to do so, please call me on that traffic and commuter line at 788-3093.
Well, as Pat's been mentioning, unusually warm, especially when you look later this week in Winnipeg. Some winter sport enthusiasts might not be saying it's the most wonderful time of the year because of the lack of snow. St. Mary's Road Olympia Cycle and Ski owner Brian Burke says he's concerned. So to look at the business aspect of this warmer weather we're having, he spoke with CBC's Jim Agapito, and he said inflation was already impacting his business in Winnipeg, and the last thing he now needs is a lack of snow to continue.
Not a whole lot of fun. We're still selling some bikes. We're selling ski packages, but clothing is quite a bit slower. We're still doing repairs. But the lack of cold and the lack of snow, Winnipeggers need to see both before they'll buy warmer jackets, before they'll buy a lot of cross-country ski packages. And on a personal level, I'm a skier. I need to get out there, and it's in between seasons. It's not fun. You walk and you go to the gym and you bike a little bit, but it's a short ski season to begin with, so it'd be nice to have snow soon.
When does the cross-country or ski season start?
Well, it varies year to year. We've started skiing anywhere from Halloween to beginning of January. Like, we give free lessons with people that buy packages. And some years we start them in December. Most years we start them beginning of January because there's just not enough skiing snow. Well, it doesn't look like there's snow for a bit. We only need one dump and then we're skiing. We don't need a huge snowfall. The sooner the better. Let's put it that way. We're still strong. Like, there's still good sales in January and February for cross-country ski equipment. It's the clothing. People will put it off till next season. So that's what we're looking at. The economy has something to do with it as well. Over COVID, people bought a lot and a lot and a lot. We got all our inventories in line, and we have a lot of stock. But people don't have the money. I think that's concerning as much as no snow. They're with food prices, with restaurants being more expensive, with staffing being more expensive, with everything, your costs go up and people don't buy as much.
That was St. Mary's Road Olympia cycle and ski owner Brian Burke talking there in conversation with CBC's Jim Agapito about what business has been like because it's been nice, lack of snow. Meantime, some snowmobile riders aren't too worried at all. Mitch Ruth is the co-owner of Headingley Sports Shop. His family has been selling snowmobiles for over 50 years. Here's what he said to Jim.
Snowmobiling is it's a passion for lots of us. It's a great way to make winter go by a little quicker, something to look forward to. Well, I mean, we could always use more snow. There's never enough snow. But you know what, I'm still optimistic about it. I mean, I always like to see more snow, don't get me wrong. It's I don't want to see it brown out there. But I'm not super concerned right now. I mean, we did have a decent amount of snowfall back in October. Unfortunately, it didn't stick around. It was looking like it was going to, but yeah, I'm not too concerned. Usually, the time of season, we're not riding sleds right now, anyways. You know, it takes some time for some snowfall to build up a base. Usually we get lucky enough to get a snowfall around the Christmas time, and that's kind of where the season starts.
Do you have customers that are coming in here right now wondering where's the snow? Does that worry you? Or?
It's not normal to be this low on snow. Yes, customers are coming in saying that, but you know what? They always come in. They're always saying something. Whether there's no snow, whether it's too cold, whether there's too much snow. You know, there's many reasons that we can put the onus on something else other than, you know, just getting out and doing it and making the time to do it, right?
What is your hope right now?
Well, I'm watching the forecast every day. And yeah, I mean, I want to see those 14-day forecasts. I'm looking further out, and I'm trying to read weather maps a little bit because I'm excited for it. Every day I wake up and hoping to see some snow and hoping that it's not going to be plus temperatures.
Yvonne Rideout, Executive Director of Snowman. Well, we have 13,000 kilometres of trail throughout the province, 53 volunteer clubs, and over 5,000 members. Well, we would like to see some snow. We're glad we're getting the frosts first. That is a plus. Our volunteers are out preparing and signing the trails, getting ready. So, and once we get the snow, and we will eventually get the snow, it's a certainty that will be the case. We'll be ready to start opening some trails. So keep an eye on the Snowman website, on the interactive map, so that you can see when we start to open up. It's not unusual. It's probably more typical. The majority of our trails not to be open until into January, the second week of January. Last year we were fortunate. We were able to open earlier, but that normally is not the case. It's kind of a chicken and egg scenario. Sometimes we get the snow, but then we don't have the frost.
Why is the frost so important?
To freeze up waterways as well as swampy areas and so on. It just makes it putting a trail base down so much better if the ground is frozen.
Okay, so what's it like right now? Seeing it outside, kind of a little brown, not happening. How are you feeling?
Well, I mean, we certainly want to get the snow. We're asking everybody to have patience with us. Well, we can do that. Our clubs can't make snow, unfortunately. So we ask that you bear with us and let's join me in doing the snow dance. The season usually lasts until the end of March, sometimes into April, especially we find that into April you'll get more people going north to and trailer their sleds to the trails up north. So we're hoping to have a good season. If we open at the beginning of January, hopefully we'll go through till the end of March. Unfortunately, some of the southern part of the province will start to close, of course, before the north. So we see that trickle effect.
Could you give people a little bit of, when it does snow, where they should look for resources, some of the trails, some of that stuff?
Well, we do in preparation for the season. I'll always encourage people to do the online snowmobile safety course. Our interactive map online or the app lets you see what trails are open, when they were groomed last, and so on. So that's a very valuable resource as well. And keep your eyes to the skies and let's hope for snow.
That was CBC's Jim Agapito speaking to Headingley Sports Shop's co-owner Mitch Ruth and Snowman Executive Director Yvonne Rideout. So Pat Canugas popped in to talk fog and traffic in a moment, but she said that we're supposed to do the snow dance. What does it look like? You ready? I sound like a turkey. Every time I do a sound effect, I sound like a turkey.
Oh, Marcy.
Okay, no sound effects, but I'm moving my hands up and down, radio listeners. I'm trying to show snow. What would a snow falling sound effect be?
It's not even, it's pretty quiet, and you're kind of chair dancing.
Is this a snow dance? This is a snow dance?
Oh, Marcy.
Do you want to try some? Try one? Look at Patty's not even trying it.
It's just like... I have serious news to get to here, Marcy. Come on.
You have serious traffic stuff. It's the fog is not letting up.
Yeah, it's really something out there, getting a lot of calls. And Dennis has been keeping in touch with us all morning on his commute. And there's 2 incidents just east of the city. So the first one is just before you get to Deacon's Corner. It's impacting westbound traffic. Emergency crews are tending to an incident there. So it's before Deacon's Corner westbound. But after Deacon's Corner, at about the mile road after Deacon's Corner, there's another incident that is affecting eastbound traffic as well. So hopefully I got that right from those details from Dennis, but it's a little bit slow going in both directions there. So know that that is happening again just east of the city on number 1. So thank you for the call, Dennis. 788-3093 is the traffic and commuter line. We are on the air till 8:37. Please give me a call if there's anything else to update us on. I would appreciate it.
Small update just on how different the morning is depending on where you are in Manitoba. Pat's talking about all the fog and calls. If you go west of the city, though, we have some beautiful pictures coming in. Thank you to Jeffrey Plass, who sent us in a really nice one of the sunrise in Brandon, and also a picture of the beautiful orange sky that is the sunrise over the around the halfway tree. So that's, of course, Highway 1 West between Winnipeg and Brandon, halfway. So there's a gorgeous photo, and you're probably looking at it on our YouTube channel right now. But if you have other photos to send the show, remember, you can always email us, radio893@cbc.ca, or post on our social pages.
What happened that made you start to think and see climate change differently?
It's wind and heat, fossil fuels, fire, floods. It's international and very Canadian.
Hi. How much snow have you got there?
Quite a bit. Laura Lynch guides you through the climate change crisis, the problems, and the solutions. What on Earth? Sunday morning at 11:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Well, thanks for joining us here this morning. Good morning to everybody out in Winnipeg, walking around downtown. People looking comfortable out there in this foggy start to the day. Well, next to the show, we have the first in our series of really special stories produced by a team of aspiring filmmakers here in Winnipeg. They're all high school grads taking part in CREATE. It's an entertainment arts training program at Sisler High School that CBC Manitoba is partnered with. Now, the goal is to produce stories about the community. So with the help of CBC Manitoba, that's what's happening. Today, the first of those stories. Students Kirill Jazz Cruz, Teki Gabre Hawaryat, and Fateh Brar headed to Winnipeg Martial Arts Studio, where they met a 14-year-old who took up the discipline of martial arts in order to connect to her Filipino roots. Now, that teenager is now ranked one of the best in the world. Here now is her story.
It's kind of stressful because a lot of people have high expectations for you, but I also feel proud to have a title like that. It's really nice to have some recognition as well. Hi, my name is Giselle Akira Policarpio, and I do Sikaran and Arnis. Sikaran and Arnis is one of the ancient styles of fighting in the Philippines.
I am Kelly Legaspi, a 5th degree black belt, one of the instructors and administrator of Winnipeg Sikaran Arnis Academy. These two martial arts are quite ancient. How they started was during the times of the Spanish invasion of the Philippines. They make it look like a dance, so the Spaniards doesn't know that they are actually preparing for war to defend the land.
What I really love about Sikaran and Arnis is that it's unique and different from other styles like karate and wushu. It's a way to test your creativity as well as like teaching yourself and disciplining your body on different ways to move. My school, we are currently known as one of the best schools in Winnipeg because all of the Winnipeg delegates who went to Ireland already came home with titles, like world titles. I brought home the 12 and 13 girls bronze and silver medalists for creative weapons and team sparring. As a Filipino Canadian who has not been to the Philippines or cannot speak the language, learning the sport and doing it is the closest thing for me to be in touch with the motherland. Connecting to my culture is important to me because I find that in a lot of my friend groups or just a lot of people that I meet in general who are Filipino, they know lots about the heritage and culture, and I feel kind of excluded from that because I was not raised like how they were. They obviously know dishes and words that I obviously do not, but I can learn from being around the people at the gym. My next steps would to eventually learn all the forms that I need to. Definitely learn how to defend myself in many more ways. Also to really help get Sikaran and Arnis recognized in the martial arts community and make a name for myself.
I love hearing the sound of it. That's Giselle Policarpio, a Winnipeg teen who now is ranked as one of the world's best in her age group for Sikaran and Arnis, an ancient form of Filipino martial arts. Thanks to Sisler Create students for putting that piece together. Congrats, you guys. The first piece out the door. Will have more to come. Kareel Jazz Cruz, as well as Teki Gabre Hawaryat and Fateh Brar. Thank you guys for the story. For more, you can go on cbc.ca/Manitoba or tune into CBC Television News tonight at 6 to check out what this looks like.
Dig deeper and get more from the news.
What does this land do for us?
Here on CBC News Explore.
So let's start with the why and then we'll get to the what.
Because that's what we do here. We explore news.
And that means more carbon is being released into the atmosphere.
We dig deep into the stories.
I just want to be a dad.
We slow things down and we figure it out together.
Batters were striking out way more often.
You can get it 24 hours a day and it's free.
How did this happen?
CBC News Explore. Stream free.
Well, today on The Current, which if you're a regular listener to CBC Radio know is following our show at 8:37 a.m., a commercial plane flew across the Atlantic this week, fueled by fat and sugar instead of fossil fuels. Now, it seems like this story would be a climate win, but actually environmentalists say that it's too expensive and it's too complex to lead to guilt-free flying, rather. So we're going to get some analysis of this, of what happened here, and also of where we go from here, and how we could use that kind of an approach to do better for the climate and where its pitfalls are. That conversation's all on The Current. So right at 8:37 a.m. following our program, you can hear that. In addition, I want to take a moment just to thank everyone who was involved in our special day of programming all day Friday morning tonight, and in fact also over the weekend morning show with Nadia Kidwai as well. So we were appealing to see whether or not you had anything to give and share with Harvest Manitoba. We have historic need for the food bank and member agencies all across our province. And wow, just an amazing total. This morning I can share with you that our total with matching factored in, what was raised on Friday through Make the Season Kind is what we call the initiative, $304,815. So that will go so far to helping people in Manitoba. So just wanted to thank everyone for their involvement and thank you for the generous donations. Amazing. If you want to go online, in case you missed the very special day, you can hear and see some of the performances. So check out our YouTube channel, CBC Manitoba's, and also please check out cbc.ca/Manitoba for more as we made the season kind on Friday. Right now it's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is -7 in Winnipeg. We have a fog advisory for Winnipeg, the Red River Valley, Pembina Valley, parts of the Interlake this morning. So do be careful. We also have a bit of frost out there. And later today, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds, a mild high of -3. Remembering lives cut short. Dozens gathered at a vigil outside the Langside rooming house where 5 people were shot last weekend. Gardena Prince was there drumming and singing in honor of the community. She says she knew all 4 of the people who were killed, and one of the victims, 29-year-old Melelik Lesakel, was her partner of nearly 2 years and her best friend.
He had a lot of friends. He was loved, very kind. He had goals and he had dreams, and unfortunately he didn't get a chance to achieve them.
Lesakel's funeral is today. Last week, police charged 32-year-old Jamie Randy Felix with 4 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Global Affairs Canada confirms the death of another Canadian citizen in the Israel-Hamas war. No name has been released, but Canadian officials say the death happened in Lebanon, where the Israeli military and Hezbollah militants have been exchanging fire since the October 7th attacks on Israel. The latest confirmed fatality brings to 8 the number of Canadians killed in the war. A First Nations scuba diving team in Island Lake is expanding to bring closure to families in times of tragedy. They are called Ugoguk dive team, meaning people who go in the water. In the past few years, the team has grown from 4 to 15 certified divers from 4 Island Lake communities. In the past 2 months, they've recovered the bodies of 2 community members. Victor Little is from Garden Hill First Nation.
What we do, like volunteering, it comes from our hearts. And it's for the people. It's for the people that we're doing this for.
All 4 Island Lake communities, including Red Sucker Lake, help each other with search and rescue whenever anyone is missing. An Indigenous-led homeless shelter wants to bring safety and security in its first winter running Thompson's Homeless Shelter. Manitoba, Keewatin, Okamakanak, or the Northern Chiefs Group, took over operations of what is now called the Wellbriety Centre. The centre's manager, Gina Spence, says eventually a sobering centre will be added, but not right away.
At this point, not right now. I'm just working at keeping the shelter open, ensuring that, food security is good for them. Because we've only been open for 6 months, we're still learning about a lot of things.
MKO is now ramping up preparations for the winter. Spence says the Wellbriety Centre will have a medical van patrolling Thompson Street to see if anyone needs help. The music streaming service Spotify is laying off about 1,500 employees. That's about 17% of its global workforce. It is the company's third round of cuts this year. As it looks to trim costs and pull itself out of the red, the Stockholm-based company lost $500 million over the first 3 quarters of 2023. And winter sport lovers across the province are hoping for more snow, and they hope it comes soon. Yvonne Rideout is the executive director at Snowmobilers of Manitoba, also known as Snowman.
Our clubs can't make snow, unfortunately, so we ask that you bear with us and let's join me in doing the snow dance.
There may be some people doing a snow dance because we don't have any in the forecast. Rideout reminds riders to make sure they have a snow pass to avoid fines when the season finally does get going. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather Wells, for the morning.
Thank you.
Heather Wells, Megan Ketchison, and Joni Nicolo in our news department this morning. In addition, on our live team today, behind the controls, Mr. Abby Adiyemi, also Travis Peterson, who's on the YouTube channel, and Pat Kanuga, who's here with last traffic and weather.
Yeah, and this came out just after my last traffic report. But right now, the westbound lanes of number 1 from Provincial Road 207 to 3 kilometers east of PR 27 is now closed. So your workaround there is to take 207 down through the Rett, which then spits you back up at Deacon's Corner to get around that incident there. Emergency crews are tending to a crash in that area. So once again, the number 1 westbound lanes from PR 207 to 3 kilometers east of PR 207 are now closed. That came out about 8:15 this morning. So thanks for all your calls. Hopefully this fog will dissipate and there's no more carnage on the highways, but appreciate all your calls this morning. On the traffic line in weather, once this fog does dissipate, we're going to get today to a -3 for a daytime high. I've been sitting at -7 since we pretty much signed on here at 6 o'clock this morning, and we will get to that -3. We do expect to see some sun at some point today, and then a mix of sun and cloud into the afternoon. Then clouding over, we'll get to a -9 tonight, tomorrow -2, and then we're keeping an eye on this Wednesday, Thursday, 7 and 6 on the plus side, and then a 2 on Friday, and then way off in the distance on Sunday, we're back to normal temperatures or seasonal norms around -10 for a daytime high. So that's what's happening here. It has been -10 and mostly cloudy in Brandon this morning on the way to a -3, and Thompson is going to get to a -6. You're at -7, been there all morning. So have a fabulous Monday, everyone. Hope it's a good one.
All right, thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Thanks to our hardworking team of associate producers that produce the work for all of our programs here that are created locally at CBC Manitoba. That's your morning show, noon show, Up to Speed, and your weekend morning show as well. Thank you, guys. In addition, big thanks to our leaders in unit, Nellie Gonzalez, and the senior producer of audio, Leif Larson. Take care and be well, everybody. I'm Marcy Markusa. We'll talk to you again tomorrow right here on Information Radio.